Before we get into anything more advanced, you have to learn how to even get into a stance. You're going to hear your coach or someone say, get into your fighting stance, and you see so many different styles and techniques. And you got to remember, there is no one way of just standing. You're going to see some fighters, like karate fighters, like to stand more sideways. Boxers will stand more sideways. But you got to remember, this is kickboxing, and we're going to look at how to stand as a kickboxer. So the first thing we're going to work on is our stance. And I always get everyone to stand shoulder width apart. Then you're going to bring, if you're a southpaw, your left leg back. If you're an orthodox fighter, your right side back. I'm an orthodox fighter, so I'm going to step back with my right foot. Matt Special beside me is a southpaw, so his left foot's going to go back. Troy Sheridan beside me is an orthodox fighter as well, so his right foot is going back. When they put their foot back, they stay square, and that's a big mistake you want in fighting, because that's where people throw straight punches. So you're going to see jab crosses are very open to attack. So if I bring Troy in, if he stands too square and his shoulders are square, okay, that is easy for straight punches. This is why we don't want to stay so square. It opens for straight punches. So what you want is you want to have your lead side in front a little bit more. So Troy's an orthodox fighter, so his left side is going to be in front. That narrows your center line. So you're no longer square, you narrow, and now you can use your lead side to block, easier to parry, easier to defend. Matt's a southpaw, so his right side is going to be in front. So he's right side here. Again, big mistake is if he stands too square, again, open for attacks. You got to look, that is your window. You can use that as a strategy in later times of fighting, which we'll get to later on in the series. You can stay a little bit more square if you're maybe using your parry defense. Again, that's later down the road. First things first, second mistake people are going to make is when they have their foot here, they're going to bring this and put their heels in a line. At this point, if your heels are in a line, you don't have good structural balance, and to develop good power in your punching and kicks, you're not going to get it. So the key is make sure when you line up, your right foot goes back and you slightly lean. Do not get your heels in line. I want to see some space. A ball should be able to roll through your feet. Okay? And remember, with your stance, it changes. It's dynamic. You're never going to be in the same structured stance. Later on, I'm going to discuss defensive stance, which is a little bit shorter. You want to be a little bit shorter so you can block your attacks. If you're attacking and you know you're going to kick, you might lengthen your stance. So your stance changes as you throw different techniques or have different strategies. I'm looking at your hands. I call it the horns of your head. It's the strongest part of your head. So you want to have your hands touching your head. Foot back, shoulder in front, hands touching. All right, so now we have a very strong structural stance, step one. And this is something you got to constantly review, constantly go back to, get people to test your defense, your stance, your footwork. Stronger footwork, more power. So bazooka style kickboxing, it's about power. It's about setting up power shots. It's about knockouts. It's about using good basics to be effective in fighting. Starts with a good stance. So now we're going to walk, and this is the most important thing, is box stepping. People always step incorrectly, and the key to box stepping is our feet never want to cross. So I never want to have my feet cross. So with my guys behind me, we're going to work on good basic stepping. So again, structural, get into our position. When we're going to our left, right, our front foot leads out and our back foot comes back in position, and we're back in our structural stance. So again, one more to the left, foot comes out, foot comes across. Big mistake people will make is they'll go with their back foot, and at this point your feet are crossed. You're not in a position to attack. You're not strong structurally. So you always want to constantly keep that framework and structure in the stance. Now if we go to the right, right, left, right, left. Forward now, front foot, back foot. Front foot, back foot, front foot, back foot. If I go backwards, back foot comes first. Back foot, front foot. So you're constantly keeping the structure in the stance. That's what's called box stepping. So as one of my coaching drills for my beginners, I'll literally stand in front of the class and I'll just point a direction and have my guys move. Let's see it. So you have Troy over here. He's using dumbbells just to keep, weighted on his shoulders, help keep his shoulders nice and strong. Matt's just using his gloves. Different variations helps with different things. I change it up. I like a lot of weighted dumbbell work just to strengthen your shoulders and the joints, and it helps with good punching power. So I'll stand in front of my class and I'll just point a direction. I don't even have to speak. And you can see both of their feet never cross. They're taking nice, small, calculated steps just to make sure they're always in a good, strong structural support and framework. Good. Now, once you have those steps built in, they can do it as their own shadow drill. So I'll get my guys and I'll say, all right, 3-minute round, go. And both of my guys will just go and pick directions they want. Right now, we're not punching yet. We're going to get into punching soon. But they're just going to move around the area, keeping good, proper structural footwork and using their box step. Once you get comfortable with it, you can see Matt is adding a little shuffle. So he's adding a little shuffle back, left and right. But just make sure their feet never cross. That is the key. So you're adding skips, steps, but again, their feet never cross. If your feet cross, you're open to low kicks, you change the structure in your hand, and their hand position is nice and tight. Reiterating, good basics, good footwork, strong head defense. Everything is solid in their footwork. Now, you can make it even easier. We're going to start very easy, and we're just going to add a simple 1-2 to our step. So once you get into a position you like, you're just going to throw some straight punches, get back into your position. Step, step, you can throw a 1-2. Step, step, you throw a 1-2. Step, step, throw a 1-2. Doesn't have to be on every step. You can step a few times and back. You might step left, then right, and then throw. But you're constantly changing. You're being unpredictable. Forward, backward, sideways. We're just going to go for about 10-15 seconds on our own just to show you how it works. Okay? Let's go, guys. And I would use this, usually I like to do this in the beginning of my class just as a good reference, as a good base, get everyone on the same page. And you're going to notice, if you do even spend 5 minutes on this before class or before hitting pads or before sparring, your footwork, your power will develop with good basics and good foundation in your stance. There you have it. That's episode 1, working on solid footwork and stepping. Next week, you got to subscribe below. Episode 2 is going to show how we're going to use our strong footwork and our stepping to create power in our strikes. Follow along, subscribe, leave comments, like. Let's build this up. The more you like, the more you comment, the more you watch this, the more videos and the more motivation I'm going to have to keep releasing and showing you guys all my good stuff that made me so successful. Take care. Go, episode 2. Episode 1, we started talking about box stepping, and box stepping we said was very important. I'm going to recap it very quickly. My guys in the back are going to be doing it. I have one of my female fighters, Alla. I have Matt behind me, Matt Special, and Troy Sheridan behind me. So they're going to be my actors and demonstrators behind me. They're going to be doing our box step behind. And again, they're going to keep a strong framework, quick review, neutral stance, dominant foot behind you, slight lead with the shoulder, hands touching the hard part of your forehead. And we're going to keep there. We're going to keep moving our box step. Quick recap. What we don't want our feet crossing. So feet crossing is a big no-no. You want to make sure you constantly have good stability in your stance. And a key to not switch your feet is don't overstep. I don't have to take one big step to get over here. You can take smaller, more calculated steps. That's going to keep you in more of a controlled stance in order to get more power, to counter back a little bit quicker, to be able to have better offense. So a little bit of shorter steps. Feet are never crossing. Constantly keeping good, strong hips, good hand position, slight lean on the front side. Now, quickly, we're going to discuss in episode 2, it's going to be defensive versus offensive footwork. Now, when we're doing our box step, you can see behind me, they're not in a long stance, okay? As I said in the first episode, stances constantly change all the time. You don't want to stay very long. Why? Because it's very hard to block. leg kicks, body kicks. So when we're doing our box step, we're going to be in our defensive stance. A defensive stance is a stance that's a little bit shorter. You don't want to be too long. So defensive stance is a little shorter, and this allows us to be in control of our footwork. And allows us to block. That's the key. So it's going to allow me to bring my leg block and blocks up. We're going to show 3 leg blocks today. I like to mix them in while I'm doing the box stepping. So the first one, I'm not going to overanalyze how you're going to block. That's going to be a later episode. It's just getting you used to bringing your leg up and controlling your stance so you can block. So the first one is going to be lead leg up to the elbow, lead leg to the opposite, and the third one up. So this is going to make sure you're in control of your stance. So my guys behind me are going to box step randomly and mix in the 3 different leg blocks. Again, it's here to control our footwork, control our stance, and get used to our hips lifting up and blocking. We're going to spend about 10 seconds adding the block. Now, when you're doing this drill, you could only block once and move. You can add double, but you can see I'm constantly in a defensive stance. We're going to take note from a side angle how my foot position is in its length. Again, I don't want to be too long. Being too long won't allow me to block for my legs. It's harder. And it actually makes it easier for people to attack my leg, and they can hit my leg for leg kicks. So I'm going to keep a shorter stance. Weight, I'm going to say, is 50-50 in the stance. Slight weight transfer on the back. If more weight's on the back foot, it allows me to lift my leg easier. And you see a lot of Muay Thai fighters with that nice light tap on the front foot. This way they could mix in their blocks and their lead attacks and their teeps. So keep your stance shorter on a defensive stance. So box stepping with a defensive stance. Now we're going to talk about our offensive stance. An offensive stance is when we're going to step into a longer stance, and that's going to bring us the power and the strength in our techniques. So I like to visualize my techniques and my footwork using lines on the floor. So I just put a simple line across the floor. My guys behind me are going to use just one of the lines in the mats. It's just going to show you that you have to step forward and you have to step back. Easiest way is with a piece of tape on the floor. Now I'm standing behind, in my defensive stance, I'm standing behind the line. When I want to attack, I want to get my front foot over the line. I'm just going to throw a simple 1-2. Not worrying about the technique of the 1-2. This video is about footwork. We're going to improve our punching, how to punch later down the road. This is just footwork. With good footwork, you're going to have more power. It's going to give you a stronger foundation, and you're going to have better technique down the road when you're punching. So let's clean up the footwork first. Behind the line in our defensive stance, you're going to step over the line and back. Over the line and back. The key to this, it's not a front foot stepping forward. I'm not stepping with my front foot. I'm pushing off my rear calf. So it's more of a rear calf push off the back leg. If I demo sideways, the guys can demo behind me. And you guys just stay active. Just show people constantly mixing up your box step, your leg blocks, defensive, offensive stance. So you can keep watching them behind to see how they're using the footwork. And they're going to move side by side, angle, all different directions. So I'm in a defensive stance behind the line. I'm pushing off my rear calf, and you can see I'm on the ball of my foot here because I'm going to start pushing off, and then I'm going to return to my defensive stance. One of the drills I like to do to reinforce strong footwork, as I step over, I like to come back and add just a leg block. This is just going to make sure you're in control of your stance. Most likely after you step, you're going to most likely, your opponent's going to counter you. So you want to be ready for a good defensive block. So I can step, I can come off, and I can constantly move, keeping strong, box stepping, strong footwork. So that's the difference between offensive and defensive footwork. Okay, I'm here with one of my female fighters, Alla Asaraf. She's going to demonstrate, this is different variations of working that step. We're just doing it with pads. You saw them doing it with shadow boxing, using the line. This is Alla going to show us how we just do it on pads as another variation to work on. Pushing off the back calf, allowing her to step forward, get more power in her punches, and then she's going to return. So it's building in solid footwork as an enter and an exit. So she enters, pushes off, and exit back. Forward, enter, exit. That builds in defense, and that's the key. So if she punches and I go to punch back, she's now out of range. In range, out of range. In range, out of range. In range, out of range. So now I'm going to get her to move slightly. So we're going to box step her movement. So I'm going to move here. She has to come in front of me. Okay, her feet are never crossing. And then when I'm ready, she's going to step and back. Step and back. So she's adding an enter, exit, and it's also teaching her how to manage distance, and that's what's important with the box step. And I'm going to bring in my other two guys for the next one. This is a little bit more of an intermediate style drill that you can do. So these guys are just going to go back and forth drilling with each other. So one person's going to throw a 1-2, then the other's going to go right back. Step forward and return. Now to make this drill a little bit more of an intermediate drill, working this stepping, after the 1-2, Troy is going to throw kicks at Matt or vice versa to work the defensive kicks. So enter, exit, and now they're working defensive stance to be able to block. There you go. That's episode 2, defensive versus offensive footwork. Very important concepts, always being in control of your feet. Stance means good power, good framework, and I always talk about the house. You're not going to have a strong house unless you have a good foundation, and it all starts with our footwork. So if you like the video, make sure you like it below. Leave some comments, subscribe. Let's keep this going, and the more you guys like it, the more you're interested in these videos, the more I'm willing to share. So subscribe below, keep watching, share with your friends. Let's grow this sport. Already episode 3. Episode 2, we discussed defensive versus offensive footwork and stance. So quick recap. Defensive stance is a little shorter. This way we can use our blocks, and we went through 3 different blocks very quickly. Offensive stance, you're stepping over the line and coming back. Okay. Defensive stance, shorter, weight more 50-50. My offensive stance is a little longer. I'm keeping my stance a little longer because in kickboxing you want to kick. So I want a longer stance in my offensive stance because it really helps wind up my kick. So you can see as if I throw a combination, the long stance allows me to kick with a little bit more power, and I'm back into my defensive stance. Episode 3 is going to be about the neutral stance. And we're going to build that into a triangle step, which is very important footwork. So we're going to be in our regular stance. And remember, we have our right foot back here with Alla, so she's going to be an orthodox fighter. Matt has his left foot behind, southpaw fighter. Troy has his right foot orthodox. And so all 3 of them are in a defensive stance, which means a little shorter stance. So from here, we're going to work an offensive stance with a 1-2. So we step 1-2, but now we're stepping back to our feet side by side, and that's called neutral stance. So if you look at the side view, my feet are perfectly side by side. That is my neutral stance. That's a different stance. So you have your defensive, offensive, I'm in neutral stance. So from neutral stance, we're going to build in something called the triangle step. So I throw my 1-2 back over the line, my feet are in neutral stance. From here, I have the option of going left or right. So I can shuffle this way, step in, and now I have a new angle. I step in, and I have a new angle. So I'm constantly switching. And this is very basic, and I only teach usually 2 or 3 shuffles. I want to get it in as like a dance step, a routine. So it's very simple for people to remember. So orthodox stance, step out, into neutral stance, shuffle, shuffle, come back in, attack, back into the neutral stance. And that's my basic footwork for the triangle step. Now I'm going to discuss different ways you can drill this. Right now we're just doing it across a line. We're doing it very linear. We're going to show you how to do it as a circle technique around a stationary object. Let's go through some drilling. One of the most basic and easiest drills you can use to work your triangle step is have a stationary object on the floor. From there, you're able to go into your offensive stance to your neutral stance and constantly change angles. So the way Troy is doing this, he's stepping, coming back into neutral, shuffling to a new position, attacking, and coming back into that neutral stance. I want Troy now, he's going to go constantly around the stationary target. The key to this is constantly be unpredictable with your movement. If you go one way, make sure you go the other way, and constantly confuse your opponent. Twice one way, once the other way. 3 one way, 1 and 1. Constantly change how and which side you're attacking with. So here's Troy just constantly mixing it up. The more advanced you get with this footwork, Troy's going to mix in left and right before he even steps. So he does a little bit of fake. So he gets his opponents guessing which direction he's going. And you can see it's a very good strategy and style if you're fighting a pressure fighter. So you got to picture a pressure fighter coming forward to Troy. Troy exits out, circles, takes a new angle. So triangle stepping is very good when you fight someone who is a good pressure fighter or someone that you want to create angles with. Instead of using a stationary object on the floor, you can use a partner. Matt and I are both using boxing gloves. Coaches can use Thai pads, boxing mitts, whatever they really want. Our third drill is going to be a bag, which we'll show you momentarily. But I like to use just their gloves. It's a little bit more interactive, and it allows partners to give and take. So Matt would usually do a couple minutes of this drill, switch, and then I'll do it. So I don't have to constantly switch pads, take it off. Still very good way to work the drill. So Matt's going to do it first. We'll switch. I'll do the drill for a few minutes just to show you how the drill works. Matt's a southpaw. He's going to get in his position. I'm the stationary object, just using my hands. Go. Turn. Right around, right around. Go. So Matt's an MMA fighter, kickboxing background, but with going into mixed martial arts. And this is a very important step for MMA fighters because it keeps them long. And especially Matt doesn't want to be taken down. So if I come in here, he's gone. Matt moves. So I start adding in some pressure fighting in order for him to get the concept of being able to move out of direction, out of range to make himself safe. Okay, and then we can call switch. Matt becomes the stationary object, and then I'll do the triangle stepping. And then again, you can constantly change up combinations the way you want to do it. So I'll just do a 1-1-2 on my enter. There's episode 3, neutral stance and triangle stepping. Very important keys when talking about footwork and movement. It's a built-in defense, so you could attack and not be hit and be able to move, create angles. Down the road, as the episodes progress, you're going to realize how important this footwork and this triangle step and neutral stance is, especially when we talk about switching stances, going from orthodox to southpaw. So keep in mind the footwork in this triangle step. We're going to revisit it, and it's just going to get better. So again, subscribe below, like, comment. The more you guys like and comment, I'll create a question and answer to try to answer as many questions as we can. But again, these videos are made with love and passion. I want to grow the sport to levels that kickboxing has never seen. So it starts with subscribing and liking and sharing these videos. All right, already at episode 4 here. First 3 episodes, we're really focusing on our footwork and how important using our footwork in fighting is. So quick recap from episode 3, we worked on from our defensive stance, we have attacking stance and coming back into our neutral stance. From here, we can shuffle sideways and come back into our attacking stance. That's called triangle stepping and in our neutral stance position. It's an important concept in fighting because you want to create angles. You want to create enter, exits, and movements. Fighting is dynamic. Fighting is about movement, ring control. And episodes 4 is going to be about distance control and how to manage that space between you and your opponent. So the basic way to put it with distance control is I like to look at distance and range in 3 different ways or 3 different levels. So Troy's going to be my demonstrator today. So if Troy's standing right here, there's 3 different ranges. I have close range where I want to stay close to my opponent. right? Usually if I'm a shorter fighter and I'm fighting someone tall, I like to use my pressure fighting, get on the inside. If now when we're, and that's called our close range, when we're in both ranges to punch and land, right, that's called mid-range, where we're both in attacking range. You can call it mid-range or attacking range. Then there's long range, which is I'm outside of range. This way, I'm totally outside of Troy's range, which makes me safe. So that's my safe range. You like to try to stay in long range where you're safe, or sometimes close range where you're safe. If you're fighting in mid-range, it's a little bit more dangerous. As we go through the series, I'll show you different ways to defend and block in mid-range. But for now, we want to stay in long range where we're safe and use our footwork, our triangle stepping. First thing about range is you have to know how long your opponent's reach is. So if Troy puts his hand out, okay, if I stay here, I'm in mid-range. So I need to make sure I'm just outside of his range. So when we're doing the drills today, I want you to stay at least one arm length away so you know how far you have to be. And you need to remember, this is kickboxing. So just because he doesn't reach with his jab, his kicks might be around, and this is how you're going to see how effective the neutral stance is and the triangle step is in avoiding counter low kicks. So quick example, Troy punches. If he goes to kick, I can go back to my neutral stance, circle, and come back in. One effective way of using episode 3 in episode 4. The first drill, we're going to start very basic, and it's going to be very slow. You don't want to overrush these drills. It's a drill to help your partner. So when you're drilling, take your time. Don't overrush and run. Let them understand and really grasp the footwork. The first one is going to be almost like dancing, where we're going to follow each other in different directions, making sure we constantly manage that distance so I'm outside of range. So I'm not in mid-range, I'm staying in outside/long range. So Troy and I are here, and we're just going to follow each other, keeping each other's distance and following each other. I like to look at it as dancing, so we're going to just follow each other and dance along. Hopefully Troy's wife is not watching and gets mad at me here. So first thing we're going to do, let's manage our distance. The key to this is using our box stepping, where we constantly don't want our feet crossing, and this is where you're going to see episode 1. And you can see we're constantly staying away from each other, managing distance, and not getting too close to each other, always staying out in that long range. To make this drill a little bit more advanced, we're going to add a pressure fighter versus a movement fighter. I'm going to start being the pressure fighter, and I'm going to pressure fight in more of a straight line, where Troy is going to use the triangle step in the neutral stance in order to move, create angles, and evade my pressure. Here we go. You can see Troy here is keeping distance. As soon as he sees me pressure, he's going to go to his neutral stance, circle out, and move. Now what I'm going to get Troy is using single. I'm going to get him to switch directions a little bit to make his footwork a little bit more fancy and unpredictable which way he's going. Usually in my class, after a few minutes or even a few seconds, I'll constantly call switch. And what the switch does, Troy will now become the pressure fighter. I will become the outside movement fighter, avoiding his forward pressure. So switch. Even if Troy's backing up, I can constantly switch, manage my distance, constantly keep. Troy's pressure fighting me. Circle, create my angles. He can come in, I can fake directions and move. As it gets more advanced, you can add some slight punching, very light, just to see how NFR range is. I'm going to mix in punches and kicks with Troy. Switch. and time. Very simple drills. As you can see, we're already 4 episodes in, and we've yet to throw a punch. Footwork is key, basics are key. Learning this from an early stage is going to help you a lot down the road. And that concludes episode 4, distance control. And distance control is probably the most important thing when it comes to fighting. You need to know where you are in relation to your opponent. This way you know what strikes work better, how to use better defense. All the best fighters in the world have great distance control. Watch them, study it, and always constantly improve it. Whether you're a pressure fighter or a movement fighter, you need to understand distance and distance control. Also called range, distance or range, same kind of word for the same thing. Make sure if you like these videos and you keep learning, make sure you like, subscribe, and write all your comments below. If you like something, write it below. If you want to learn something, I'll try to answer it in my question and answer segment. Just keep learning, keep liking, keep spreading the love, and keep growing the sport. Discuss 3 main common mistakes that a lot of people do when throwing the jab. Not really talked about. People realize more on, okay, the right hand's dropping. Yes, that's a common mistake. Or you're not covering the chin. Yes, that's a common mistake. Or the way you're stepping, common mistake. But the ones that really make a big difference to me, for good power and good jab, is full extension in the punch. And that's going to be the first common mistake people usually don't look at. When they are jabbing, they jab short. And that's because they don't know range and distance yet. So you need to make sure when you punch, you have full extension. And what full extensions means is that your punch and your arm ends straight. You don't want to be punching too short. Remember, this is the basic jab. This has to be your perfect, clean, technical jab. So we're going to focus on full extension. So really focus on getting that elbow nice and straight. So if the target is close, I'm not jamming my punch. I'll create my space in my footwork in order to allow me to get full extension in my jab. The second is the return of the jab. Now that you've hit, I see a lot of people bring this hand looping down back to their head. So hit, looping down, hit, looping down. We want to be able to hit impact, straight line back. A jab is a very linear strike, so you want to be able to punch straight and return straight. I want to take out that loop. All right, so that first mistake we're talking about is the elbow coming up. Very simple drill in order to improve the elbow staying in. Stand against the wall. If you have your shoulder against the wall this way, you can't really lift your elbow up. So it's a good way of forcing yourself to keep the elbow in. Another way you can do it, and I do this a lot with mitts, I get my fighters to punch vertical. So when you punch vertical, it forces the elbow to stay in. So the flight path is very linear rather than coming out with the elbow. Because at the end of it, it's only the last 2 inches you want to turn the punch over. One way to visualize, and it's very important to visualize in order for good technique, you have to think there's a hole and where the target is. So I want to be able to punch through the hole and return my hand through the hole. So if I'm punching through the hole, it needs to return through the hole. If I punch down, I'm exiting and breaking my circle. So through and right back. The third mistake for the punch is going to be impact versus push. And I'm going to have to explain this on the bag quickly, but there's a big difference between popping and exploding with the jab and pushing the target with your jab, and I'm going to show you on the bag. Push versus impact. Last mistake I'm going to discuss. A lot of people feel if this is the bag, I have to really move the bag, and that's what forces people to punch, to push their punch. So they'll jab and they want to push. And that doesn't create damage. Those aren't the shots that create the knockouts. Those are more weighted pushes. And yeah, you might use that shot in order to pop the chin of your opponent, throw a low kick, or pop the chin, crack the body. I could double and stiffen it. It's an aspect you can use, but for the basic jab, I'm looking for impact. So I'm going to hit this bag as hard as I can and not have the bag move. And that's the biggest difference. Impact versus push. So here I'm going to start with a push. So I'm pushing the target, But I'm going to explode. I'm going to hit. As soon as I hit that point, bang, I'm going to pull the punch back. That's going to create impact and explosion. Ouch! 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 Here's another variation you can do on the bag. This is a wall pad, and this is one of my favorite tools in order to develop punching power. And why I like this tool is because the object is stationary, it's not moving. So it allows Matt to really gauge his distance, really find full extension in his jab. And without the bag moving, he could really develop good power in his jab. Okay, just so many different ways to work the same target. I just gave you 2 different bags you can use. Now we're just going to do different pads because it's the most traditional way to do it. Here we're going to use Thai pads, which is a bigger target. For a beginner, it's easier to use larger pads because it's less likely you're going to miss. So Matt's using the Thai pads. We're just going to do some jabbing. But the last 2 we did were stationary. We're going to build in our box stepping, our triangle step, our movement a little bit more now with the jab to take it from a beginner to more of an intermediate drill. Here we go. There you go, one simple way. Troy's gonna come in right now. Just another tool we've been playing with. If you listen to the question and answer, people ask why I like the punching target and the punching shield. It's because it's big, it has a little target for me to hit, and very easy for my pad holder to hold. Same kind of concept. This is a good tool to work power with single punches. We're working the jab, perfect tool. And our last one we're going to do is Matt Special is going to come in. And this is, again, a little bit more of an advanced drill because it's a smaller target. We're going to keep using our movement. Now I have to be very accurate. I'm looking at landing these 2 knuckles right into the center of that pad. And if I feel my elbow coming up, the quick adjustment, I punch vertical. And again, this is a basic jab, and we're just using it as a single. To improve it and to make it more advanced, we can add single and double jabbing. Here's an example. Matt's just going to call 1, 2, or 3. 1. 2. 1. 2. 2. 1. 1. 3. And there you have it. There's another drill for the jab. There you have it, episode 5, the first in the technical series, which is showing our striking, and it starts with the jab. Key point, remember, make sure that elbow stays in. Make sure you're focusing on landing with those 2 knuckles. As the series progresses, I'll show you how to use the other 3, but let's focus on these 2 for the basic jab. Next episode, we're going to look at the right hand. We're going to call it our right straight and our cross. That's next episode, episode 6. If you like episode 5 and you're liking the technical series, make sure you subscribe, like below. Let's keep growing the sport. Let's keep growing this technical series, and let's have fun doing it. Move on to our lead hook today. I'm an orthodox fighter, so my lead hook is going to be my left hook. If you're a southpaw, your lead hook will be your right hook. So let's start with our foot position when discussing the hook. And it's always important to make sure we start with our feet because good power in our punches happens with our feet. So when throwing the hook, we're going to start with our foot position, making sure we're in our good stance, which comes from episode 1. We're going to be in a more of our defensive 50-50 stance when throwing the hook. The first thing we're looking at the hook is you can throw it with a step. You can step into your hook, or you can throw it stationary. In kickboxing, a lot of times the left hook sets up the right kick, so that's why I'll step with my hook, lengthen my stance, and this gives me the option to kick. So from a side view, I'll step with my hook in order to lengthen my stance, in order to get more power in my kick. Or if I'm staying stationary, I can step. That's more of my inside boxing. So both for the basic jab, and I want you to remember I'm teaching the basic left hook. As the series progresses, I'll teach variations to the left hook. But this is your basic setup for the left hook. I'm going to teach it with a step right now. So as we step, okay, we have two options. I'm going to talk about a setup hook versus more of a power hook. So the clean first hook, which is more of a stationary, not loaded hook, we're going to discuss stepping. So we're pushing off our rear calf, and we're going to be throwing the hook. The key to the hook now is the hip and the shoulder. We want to make sure our hip and our shoulder turn in order to get more power into the hook. So think about pushing your hip to the side and getting your lead shoulder over and protecting your shin. So throwing my elbow, bang. Throwing my elbow, bang. Now, once you throw the hip and the shoulder into it, we're going to discuss the pivot. And the biggest difference I see is the boxers. I'm going to call it a boxer hook versus a kickboxing hook. Boxers really like to pivot a lot on their hook, which I call it the low kicker's dream. So if I'm fighting someone and they're constantly turning their heel out for the hook, that's perfect for me to time my low kicks. So in kickboxing, we like to keep our foot a little bit more pointing forward. So when I throw my hook, bang, I'm keeping my foot pointed, again, lengthening my stance, and it puts me in a good position to kick. Where the boxing style will hook a little bit. It's not wrong to hook, each have a different purpose. If I'm inside, I sometimes will turn a little bit to get that little bit of extra drive in my hip and my shoulder. I'll slightly pivot, but I'm never over pivoting my lead foot. So from there, again, I talked about throwing the elbow. So when you're in here, you got to think about throwing your elbow. This way the hand will follow. More from a side profile. So this is more of my setup hook. Now we're going to discuss a power hook. Last episode we discussed the right hand, and a lot of times we throw the right hand, we throw our shoulder in front, which loads up our power left hand. So I could mix it with a right hand, boom, left hook. This is loading it up. Or I can add the right as a feint, boom, transfer the weight on my front foot and be able to torque and throw my body into the power and get the punch. So we're loading up with the right shoulder. So our setup versus power load up. Both work. Depends on what you're doing. So the other thing I'm going to discuss is the thumb position. A lot of people like to throw thumb, pointing towards you. I'm one of the people who like to throw thumb up. I find I get more power with it. But you have to manipulate your hand at the end of the day in order to find openings. A lot of people say as you go through a longer hook, you want to almost go thumb down because it builds through the defensive hole that's open there if you find your thumb position. More inside hooking is nice to have thumb up. I find I get good drive, and more mid hooks, maybe throw thumb down. But it all depends finding openings. You need to use your hook very laser-like. The last thing I'm going to talk about before I get into different drills and different pads to hit, I want to just discuss the flight path. And you can change your flight path based on how you extend your elbow.
So if I'm in here, I'm throwing a short hook, my elbow stays tighter to my body. If I want to throw a long hook, I just loosen up my elbow, so I have different options to throw. The last thing about Flight Path is I can hit and pull right back. If I'm throwing multiple hooks, I like to hit and return in a more circular motion, like I'm stirring a pot. So if you're stirring a big pot and you want to throw multiple hooks, it allows you to rotate. I'm going to show you some of the drills on the bag and some common mistakes. So one of the easiest ways to work your left hook or your lead hook on the bag is using a stationary target. And you're going to notice as the series progresses, I love using stationary objects because it allows you to get the most power. So I'm going to use my wall pad here, and I'm not going to line up. Right now I'm in center line. If I'm in center line, it doesn't fully allow me to get my full power through the hook because my hook is being stopped. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to the left this way, more of almost where my shoulder is in line with the bag target or the target. So from here, I have the option now to really throw my hook through the target. And this will really teach me to really turn my shoulder, my hip, and rotate to get power. I'm going to start off with more of that quick hook, and then I'm going to do that load up hook where I'm transferring weight on my front foot and then torquing and really getting power in my hip and my shoulder. So here's the different variations. Staying to the side of the bag, allowing for rotation. The load up hook. Now, once you get more advanced, that's a single power drill. Once you get advanced, I like to bang out multiple hooks because it's one of my strongest weapons. I can change levels with it. I can go 2 to the head, 1 to the body, constantly change up the levels of your hook. So here's Matt just working the quick hook. He's a southpaw, so he's using his right hook. And here he's using his single hook. This is more the basic way, and I can tell Matt now to double or triple up his hook. Now Matt, you see Matt really using the jab as a rangefinder, and using a jab is a good weapon to set up your hook. So now Matt's going to use his jab, he's going to feint with his left hand and load up his power shot. So you can see him throwing his left shoulder, and this way he's getting more rotation in his right hook and he gets more power. The left feint actually allows him to put more weight on his front foot, which allows him to get more power in the hook. You can even get him, instead of a feint, to throw a cross hook. This will make this a little bit more advanced. And again, he's finding his range with his jab, mixing in the hook and his straights and his power shots. All right, now we have Troy on the long bag. He's using more of his quick hook, and then he's going to mix in his power hook. So you can see him really loading up on that power hook. So to make this drill now for my intermediate followers and more advanced followers, especially my kickboxers who are watching, the left hook really sets up the right low kick really well. So let's see Troy really set up his left hook and mix in his right low kick. Very simple drill. Now, just for more strategy's sake, Troy's going to use a hook cross, and then he's going to change a hook low kick. So he's going to mix in his follow-ups after the left hook. There's the hook cross, hook low kick. So he's constantly changing what follows after the left hook. Very simple drill. Remember, when you're doing your bag work, don't overthrow things. Make sure you constantly take little sequences out of your training, improve it, then put it back into the bigger picture. So Troy's just working on his left hook and what he would follow with after. Here I have Troy and Matt. They're just going to be hitting different bag variations. They're going to do whatever they want. The whole thing is they're just going to use and set up their power hooks.
I'm going to ask them to set them up and follow after, so you can see some of their favorite follow-ups after landing their power hooks. Mixing some knees and kicks. Aside from all your traditional Thai pads, little mitts, to develop the left hook, this has been my favorite. The punch shield has been one of my favorite weapons because it forces you to focus on single power punching. And it's a big target where Matt's going to be able to really rip his punch through, and I can give him some good technical advice as he does it. Good, load up your shoulder a little bit more. Quick hook. Give me the quick to power. Boom, load it up. Good. Okay, we're just going to do some partner drilling. Troy and I are just going to show different variations. As I said, the quick hook and the more set up finish style hook. So we're going to throw the first more of that hook up top, and then we're going to load up with that right shoulder load up, or I'm going to call it my right feint. And again, you can set it up with the right hand. You can go here, and then all of a sudden, boom, fake the right hand, which is going to anticipate them to block nicely, and then I can load up that nice shot to the body. This is more intermediate drilling, showing the difference between the quick hook and the power hook. One of the other variations in drills I like to throw is multiple hooks, and a good way to do it is just to have very more controlled style hooks. Not all your hooks have to be power hooks. So what I'm going to have Matt hold his hand up. I'll do the drill first, and we'll start with different numbers. Matt can call any number from 1 to 5, and we're just going to throw those repetitive hooks. 2. So the key is getting that constant flow in the rotation. So watch how I'm, like I talked about in the intro, about stirring the pot, and that'll help you throw multiple hooks. 1, 3, 2, 2, 4. Okay, now I'm going to discuss some common mistakes you see when throwing your lead hook. The first one I'm going to discuss, and it's the most common, is when people throw the lead hook, this right hand drops, and a lot of times someone's going to throw the counter hook at the same time. So it's very important that when you throw that lead hook that your hand is defending. And make sure when you're throwing that hook, you want to make sure that shoulder really stays up. And one of the key way of doing that is mistake number 2. When people throw their hook, they keep their elbow down. And in order to get good weight in the punch, you have to have a nice horizontal line. And this way, when I talk about in this episode, throwing the elbow behind the punch is going to give you more power. So boom, I'm thinking about throwing the weight. You got to think, if a target is here and my elbow is down, the force is coming this way, and a lot of power gets leaked because the elbow and the weight of the elbow is not behind. Yes, there are variations to throw, but for your basic, clean lead hook, I want to see your elbow following the hand. This way, boom, you're protected by your shoulder and the weight goes here. Like I said, there's a lot of leaked power through here, so I want that elbow in line with the hand. One of the last mistakes I'm going to talk about is knuckle positioning when you're hitting. It's very important, and a lot of old school martial artists did it. Practice punching on a pad on the bag, bare knuckles. You don't have to overhit it where you damage your knuckles, but it's important to know that you are hitting with the proper knuckles when throwing the hook. So make sure when you're throwing this, you're learning to land the knuckles. When you see a lot of people will land with their mid-knuckle here, and I've even seen people scrape their hand when throwing knuckles here. So one of the key things to get weight behind the hook is just kind of turn your wrist in. This will allow you to use those 2 knuckles really well. Bang! So again, practice on the wall pad, practice with no gloves, just at the end of your workout. Not only will it toughen your hands and the bones in your hand to make your punches stronger, it'll also make sure you're landing with the right part of the knuckle. And it makes a big difference in fighting with someone who knows how to be very precision-like where they want to land. That shows advanced striking. So again, focus on which part of the knuckle you are landing with. There you have it. That's your lead hook, one of my favorite weapons to throw. It's the shot that I get the most power with, and it sets up my low kick beautifully. So if you watch a lot of my fights, my left hook, right low kick, my favorite weapon. But it's, again, like I mentioned throughout this episode, the key is knowing the basic power hook and then knowing its variation. So as the series progresses, I'm going to teach more of different variations to throw. But the key is you have more of your quick style hook and that loaded power style. Play around with both of those, practice those drills. Episode discuss the right hook, which is a shot that you're not going to throw as often, but when you do, it's got to have good technique and good power behind it. Hope you're enjoying the episodes. Again, thank you everybody for the positive thumb up comments, as well as all the questions you've been asking. Make sure you check out the question and answer segments as well for more learning on the bazooka kickboxing style. Welcome to episode 7. Episode 6 was the left hook, and that was by mistake. Episode 6 should have been the right hand. However, with some technical difficulties, and I didn't want all you followers and all you people eagerly waiting to learn, so I released the lead hook before I did the straight. But ideally in the Kickboxing Academy system, I would have liked to have had the straight right, but because everyone's been loving the videos, everyone's been positive about it, I decided to release the lead hook before the straight hand. But let's get into the right hand, and just when thinking about this, just remember that in the system, this happens, learning the straight right happens before the hook. Discuss the jab. Today we're going to talk about our right hand. I'm going to call it my right hand because there's different ways you can throw it and different ways you can call it. It's called your right straight, it's called your cross, it's called your two. And because I'm in an orthodox position, it's going to be my right hand, my rear hand, my power hand, and I'm going to show you different ways to throw it. And you got to remember, just as we discussed with the jab, there's so many different ways to throw a right hand. It could be a straight, and I'm going to determine the difference between a cross and a straight. A straight is a punch that I'm not overthrowing my shoulder. Once I throw my cross and the punch crosses my center here, I'm now throwing a cross. So that's the difference between your straight and your cross. Very similar, it's just how much my right shoulder travels, and we're going to discuss that later on in the video on how to control the distance you throw your right shoulder. Starts with our good footwork. Just as we talked about in episode 2, defensive versus offensive footwork. That offensive stance is what's going to give you the power in your right hand. So pushing off the rear calf, having the transfer of energy, push over, you have your right hand, and come back. So the timing of the step is very important. I can step and come back, or I can step, plant, and throw. Two different timings, both have different purposes. So I can step and back, so the timing of my foot landing and my punch landing at the same time, or there's a slight delay where the step happens and the right hand is thrown. Some key points when throwing it is keeping this right elbow in. The punch stays vertical. Last 2 inches, you're going to turn, focusing on landing with the 2 points. I want to make sure my left hand stays up nice and tight and back. I'm going from this position and back. The key is when having good power in the stance, you want to make sure you're not overstepping. I don't want my toe to be so far in front of my knee. That means a lot of my weight is on my back foot, which means I'm not getting full power and full weight into my right hands and into these knuckles. So I want to make sure I step and I return, and this way my knee is on top of my foot. This allows me to sit on my punch and get more weight behind this hand. There's 2 questions that I always get. Why do I always keep a long stance? And there's a reason for that. This is kickboxing, and you want to kick after your punches. So if I constantly bring this back foot up, it's going to be harder for me to throw a kick. So I like to keep a longer stance. So there's different ways you're going to move the back foot. I can step, keep it long, or I can bring the back foot up, and this will allow me to get more power in my right hand. But the downside to bringing the back foot up is I have to step again in order to kick, where if I stay long in my first one, I have the room to kick. So depending on what you're doing, are you looking to finish with your hands, or are you looking to set up some of your kicks? Big difference there. The other thing, again, back to the footwork, is making sure our toe is pointing forward. I don't want to step out and have my heel coming out too much. The other key thing is loading up the right hand when you throw this. And one way I like to do it and build it in from the basic right hand is having a slight delay. And if you see my shoulders, as I step, I bring my left side in front of me. That builds in defense to the straight punch right from the basics. Even though the class or the person you're teaching might not understand why I'm narrowing that line and defending here, but it's a way to build in defense, and it's going to help them later down the road. So I'm keeping this hand up, it loads up my right power side, and I throw my right hand. So step, bang, you can see slightly coming in front to block any straight punch, and back into my position. The other thing I'm going to discuss is you can throw the two, and it usually happens with the jab. So instead of that little shoulder movement to set up and load up the two, you're going to step with the jab, two, and back. So you have both options when throwing the punch. Side view, I can step and punch, I can step, bring the back foot up, or I can fake the jab and throw, which is feints, which builds in feints. So I can, boom, I can fake the jab, move, so many different ways to throw it. Practice both. I like to have single, long, and back foot up. From the beginners, reinforces good habits for intermediate and advanced level techniques. Back to one of my favorite ways on working any technique is a partner back and forth drill. Troy and Matt are just exchanging rear hands back and forth. Troy is an orthodox fighter, so his straight is coming from his right hand. Matt is a southpaw fighter, so it is his left straight. Both of these guys are just using that step in, throwing. They're keeping their stance long because it's a built-in enter and exit. Now both of them are going to throw the same right hand, but this time they're going to bring the back foot up and try to get more power behind the hand. So it's weighting the punch, getting more weight behind it. Now we can build in a simple jab cross and back. So now they're doing the jab cross, staying long in their footwork. They're staying in their offensive stance. Now they're going to do the same 1-2, but bring the back foot forward, weighting, putting more power on their right or rear hands. A fun little way that I like to get my guys to build in good conditioning, good shoulder endurance and strength, I'll randomly call between the drill consecutive punching. So they're going to find each other's timing right away, stay long, getting full extension in their punch. And it's a good way to get your students or your fighters moving their shoulders, because a lot of times they're very stiff in their shoulders. So here they're focusing on rotating their body, and it's a good conditioning and shoulder workout. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Again, so many different ways to hit targets, to hit bags. I'm just going to go review and talk about them once again. Matt's using the traditional tie pad, which is a big target. So if you're a beginner, it's a lot more safe and confident to hit a big target, and you can go back and forth. Just starting off with long stance, I'll mix in my back foot up, and I'll mix in the jab cross, just showing you different variations. And we're going to actually build it into some triangle step, neutral stepping, which is episode 3 in the series. As you can see, even though I'm outside and Matt throws it up, I know how far I have to be from my target in order to hit and get full extension. Back foot up. Stop moving back. Same thing, adding the 1-2. Nice and long first.
so I can exit. Now I'm going to put focus on my right hand and bring the back foot up. Okay, we're going to bring in Troy. Same thing, we're going to use our punching shield, just focusing on the right hand, no jab this time. Just creating power, changing back foot up or not. And remember, every time you punch, you need to let that power out. That's why you're going to hear me make noise every time I punch. And our last one, a little bit more advanced style. Matt's going to be using the little mitts, and he's just going to throw movement and just getting flow and accuracy, landing the 2 knuckles. I'm going to mix in some feints, just like we talked about. One, twos. Now we're going to move over to the bag. I'll show you some other bag drills we can use. So here I have my 2 professional fighters, Matt Speciale, Troy Sheridan. They're working the bag right now, just using different ways of landing the straight. They're professional fighters, so they're able to isolate it. Maybe they want to perfect certain techniques on it, or they mix it in with strategy. So you can sit there, use your jab, 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 and try to keep setting up that right hand. So make sure every time you hit the bag, there is a purpose, and you're not just hitting the bag. Whether the purpose is to be in good shape, to clean up the technique, always do something with a purpose. Okay, so we're going to really work this right hand on the long bag. I talked about it on the jab, but some of the things I want you guys to really focus on, make sure you're not pushing that bag. We really talked about that on the jab. You want to be able to create as much power and snap as you can before hitting the target and returning. So when I'm going to throw this punch, I'm focusing on keeping my elbow in, turning last second, creating impact, and quickly pulling my hand back, not pushing the bag, creating impact. So you can see I'm hitting the bag as hard as I can, and I'm trying not to get the bag to move back. So remember, when you're doing bag work, you don't constantly need to create all this output and energy. Sometimes it's very important to pick one strike and keep working it. In this case, it's the right hand. So make sure, again, the key points, keeping your elbow in, creating impact, and pulling down. As you want to create a little bit more of an intermediate or an advanced drill, you can start mixing levels with where you want to punch, whether it's the head or the body. Back to my favorite pad, the wall pad. Why I really like this pad over the long bag is because this bag doesn't move, and you really have to be good with your distance when working with a stationary target. So what I like to do is I really like to focus on changing distance and level and how close I am with my target. So if I'm in closer range, I want to be able to punch and still have full extension in my elbow. If I'm close, I don't really want to overthrow the shoulder because I'm jamming my punch. Everything needs to be as long, and to get good impact, you need full extension in the elbow. So I'll constantly change ranges. And you're going to notice from this angle, if I'm close, I keep my right shoulder back. This way I'm not overthrowing the shoulder because I want extension. If I'm further back, I can release my shoulder a little bit more forward. I could even stand as far back as here. If I step, I can still reach my hand. One of the mistakes people make is they feel they need to get so close for that right hand, when realistically, you can stand out really far back, use your step, use your extension, and use your reach. A lot of people ask me, like, oh, how do you, just because you're a tall fighter, doesn't necessarily mean you have good reach. A shorter fighter can learn how to manipulate his elbow positioning, his shoulders, and still have more longer effective striking than the taller opponent. So keep playing with your distance and keep working different ranges for your right hand. So I'm going to discuss some common mistakes people make when throwing their cross. And the first one is, as the cross comes out, that left hand always drops. And this is a shot you really need to be careful with for those big counter hooks and counter punches. So make sure when you're throwing, you keep one hand up. The way I explain to my beginners here at Bazooka Kickboxing is always have one hand on the phone. Whether you're throwing a jab, my one hand is on the phone. If I throw my cross, my one hand is on the phone. So making sure that hand stays up nice and tight. The second mistake people make is when they punch, they bring their hand down and they loop that punch. The straight punch is a straight punch. The punch has to come out straight and return straight. So making sure it's not looping, you're able to hit and back. The other mistake is elbow really coming out. So you'll see people really throw their elbow out when throwing the straight. Yes, that is a variation to the right hand, but when we're talking about the basic straight hand or the cross, so you really need to make sure that elbow stays in. The flight path keeps the elbow vertical, bang, last 2 seconds you turn, focusing on these two knuckles. So just like the jab, you can do the same thing with your rear straights, keeping your shoulder against the wall, really forcing yourself to keep the elbow in. Very simple drill, just a reminder, visual, keep the elbow in. Just like the jab, another quality way is don't turn the punch out too soon. That causes the elbow to come out. So practice punching vertical, because when you punch vertical, it forces the elbow to stay in. If I'm turning too quick, my elbow's coming up. So think about vertical punching and turning over the last 2 seconds. There you have it, episode 7, the straight right. Very important to make sure you take advantage of listening to those key mistakes, really perfect them, isolate the technique. Stop going to the bag and throwing all these multiple combinations. It's very important you isolate each movement and make sure you perfect it and then put it into the overall system. And this is why this series is very good for you, because it really isolates different parts of your training to improve, then put into the bigger picture. The next episode, we're going to talk about the right hook. Since we already talked about the lead hook, let's talk about that rear hook. Not one of my favorite strikes I like to throw a lot, but again, it's still very important to throw that with a surprise and with a lot of power, and that's what bazooka style kickboxing is all about. Technique and power. So keep following. Thanks for the positivity, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Episode 8, we're going to be discussing your rear hook. Last episode we discussed our lead hook, which was one of my favorite weapons. But the rear hook is a weapon that I don't use as frequently. It's more of a technique for me that I like to mix in as a surprise. The reason why I don't throw it very often, it's a shot that really opens you up. And if you're fighting high-level guys who are good at throwing straight punches, they're very good at timing that overhand, that rear hook. So it's very important to make sure you use it as a surprise and you set it up very nicely. But today is about the basics. Everything in bazooka kickboxing style is about the basics. Yes, there's variations to the right hook or your power hook, but the key is learn it properly with good technique and then add the variation. So you should know the basic, most powerful way first. The first one we're going to discuss, and just as the left hook, there's a lot of similarities. You can throw the hook more from a stance where you're not stepping, or you can step in order to get more weight transfer in your feet to get behind the punch. The key to the right side or the power side hook is the rotation and pivot in the back foot. By pivoting on that back foot, you get good drive. And remember I say power comes from the legs and punching. So you want the weight transfer, the power to transfer all the way from the legs, come through the hip, through the shoulder, bang. So it all starts from that back calf all the way up to get to the lead 2 knuckles of my power hand. So from here, I'm going to pivot my back foot,
turn my hip and get my shoulder behind the shot. No step, step. No step, step, no step. The step will obviously give you more power, bang, and it's good because it allows you to switch off nice to left knees, or allows you to switch beautifully to throw a left kick. One of my favorites when I throw it is I like to set it up with a jab. So when discussing the power hook, you want to set it up where you load up this right side. And when I load it up, I can load it up with a jab and be able to throw the shot, or I can set it up with more of my lead wedge block. But the whole mentality is getting the weight of the shoulder and the hip behind the punch. Make sure the elbow follows the hand, and the key to good hooking is make sure you throw the elbow behind it to get more weight. In order to get more range in it, all you have to do is change in how you keep your elbow a little looser. So if I want to throw a nice long hook, I just lengthen my elbow. If I want tighter hooks, I just keep my hand and elbow bent a little bit more. Matt Special here. We're going to use our punching shield again, one of our new favorite tools here at the gym. Matt's just going to use his, first he's going to use more of that quick style inside hook where he's not really going to step much, really throw the elbow behind it. You can see Matt turning his back foot pivot, which throws his hip and his shoulder behind. I want Matt's elbow slightly higher. This way the weight of the elbow goes into the punch. So now Matt's going to add more of a power style hook where he's either going to come in with a lead wedge or he can throw his hand out as a jab to throw the power side hook. So touch the jab, boom. There you have it, using the punching shield. An easy way to make any drill more intermediate or advanced is just to do it with a partner, bringing Troy in, and we're just going to exchange right hooks on each other's hands. Mixing in with the step or more stationary. So I might come close to Troy and make him throw here. So make him throw a nice short hook. I might move back, force him to be longer. If I'm really long, he's going to step and throw a nice long hook. So you can play with the range that you're going to throw the hook. So again, Troy starts short. I can move it longer. This way he has to add variations. Now we can add it into different combinations. We're going to throw a jab, boom, hook. One of Troy's best weapons, he likes to throw that hook, follow left knee. Let's just put it all together. Let's go hook to knee. Another way, Troy's just going to mix it up with his left kick. I'm just going to catch it off the arm. Different variations to set up the hook and to follow. One of the best drills for me to teach and to work on throwing my hooks is punching from neutral stance. And this is a concept that will be explored more later on in the series, but this is used as a drill in order to work on turning our hips and our shoulder to get power. So Matt's going to hold the hook for me in the center of my body. I'm in my neutral stance. Now, in order for me to hit with my right hook, I have to turn, pivot my hip and my shoulder. Now I'm going to throw my other side. And then we're going to go repeat it with a little bit of a flow. It's forcing me to have to rotate my shoulder and my hip in order to get power. Neutral stance hooks, try it out. After a few, when you get used to the rhythm, it's teaching you to use your body and your weight. Once I mix it now from my stance, I'm going to notice a difference that it's easy for me to flow off. There you have it. Quick way to improve your hooks using neutral stance training. Back to my favorite equipment at Bazooka Kickboxing, my wall pad. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stand to the right of my center line. So basically if my shoulder to the pad is here, this is just forcing me to turn my body when I hook. Key power is that rotation. If I stand center, it's not allowing me to rotate. As you see, my shoulder stays square. So by stepping off of the center of the pad, you can see it allows me to really throw that punch behind it. I can mix levels with it. Set it up. I can throw doubles. Wedge, jab, so many different ways. Again, some follow-ups that I like to throw. Uppercuts, or throwing multiple hooks. Here I have Troy and Matt. They're just gonna be hitting different bag variations. They're gonna do whatever they want. The whole thing is they're just gonna use and set up their power hooks. I'm gonna ask them to set them up and follow after, so you can see some of their favorite follow-ups after landing their power hooks. Now I'm gonna discuss some common mistakes that happen when throwing your power side hook. The first thing that's gonna happen, you're gonna see the lead hand drop a lot. Make sure you keep that up. A lot of times in that in-close fighting range, it's basically punch for punch, so make sure you're defending and capitalize on catching them with their hand down. The other thing is the elbow position. Make sure when you throw, your elbow follows the punch. This way you get more weight. If you're punching and your target's here and your elbow's down, you're losing a lot of strength and power behind. Power is gonna leak at the elbow. So bang, keep the elbow following behind. And remember, you can change the length of your hook and the thumb position based on where you're trying to land through their defense. Remember, make sure when you're throwing the punches, make sure you really throw your hip behind it. Make sure you throw your shoulder. That's the way to get good power. Practice those hooks from your neutral stance, which will give you a good idea of how to make sure to throw your weight and your shoulder behind the punches. The last thing I'm going to discuss, which is the biggest mistake a lot of people make, is they throw their big hook from the outside, not really setting it up. So a lot of people rely on that big one shot. Remember, you're really opening up when you throw that shot, and a good fighter is going to use good straight punches to keep that shot at bay. So make sure you set it up nicely. Use that wedge and the jab like I discussed in the episode. Make sure you stay technical and tight when you do it. I like to throw it as a bazooka style, which is when I throw it, it's a surprise and comes with a lot of power. There you have it. Episode 8 is your rear hook. It's a shot that you don't want to throw very often. I find it's more of an inside fighting range. As I mentioned, that common mistake of throwing it too far out leaves you very open. It's not one of my favorite shots, but it's a shot that I like to use more of a surprise. But it's still important to know every strike with good quality technique and with bazooka style in mind. So thanks again for following the series. The positivity has been amazing. Keep learning bazooka style kickboxing. What's going on, Team Bazooka? We're already at episode 9 of the Bazooka Technical Series, learning bazooka style kickboxing. Last episode, we talked about our right hook or our rear hook. So we're going to talk about the rear uppercut today, which is a good transition from the right hook, is because that back foot pivot is very similar as we're looking at the hook, so it's easy to remember and easy to land. Just as we talked about with our hooks, you can throw them stationary as well as with a step. I love stepping because it closes distance and it brings in the weight transfer. So let's start with the no step first. So the key to a good uppercut is we're working on back foot pivoting. So we want to make sure when you are throwing that rear uppercut, you're looking at that pivot off of the back foot. This transfer here, what it does by turning and pivoting on that back foot, it allows my hip to be thrown into the punch. And the key to the good uppercut is that weight transfer to the front leg. If I'm just standing here,
there's no power in my legs. This is why I'm driving off that back calf, loading my hip into the punch and throwing. So I have a lot of my weight on the front leg. I'm not keeping my weight on my back leg. Maybe if I'm exiting and trying to slip a punch or move an uppercut, but for the basic rear uppercut, I need you to get weight transfer on the front foot. So from here, back foot pivot uppercut. As you see, I'm using that leg. I'm not just standing in a stationary position and throwing my uppercut. And that's the first thing you're going to see when you ask someone for the first time to throw an uppercut. They're just moving their arm. So again, the key, back foot pivot, weight foot transfer, and throw the uppercut. If you can see from this position, my elbow is straight. I'm not having my elbow come out. If I'm hitting someone, I'm trying to split this uppercut between their guards. So I have a little window to be able to keep my elbow nice and straight. And just like my hooking, I like to say throw the elbow to where you want the power. Same thing with the uppercut. You want your elbow to follow the hand. This way you get a nice straight uppercut. So here I'm going to do it. No step, step. No step, step. Using the weight transfer in my feet. Elbow position is down. Talking about hands, remember, if I'm throwing my rear one, I want to have my one hand on the phone. Bang and back. Bang and back. The key thing to remember, the uppercut isn't finished after you hit the target. So I don't want to see this hand coming back down. Keep your hand nice and tight. Bang, right back to my head. The step is a good shot because I can hit the uppercut and move back on distance. Everything staying nice and technical. As you can see, when I throw it, I pull my left shoulder. And by pulling the left shoulder, it'll help you kind of throw that nice uppercut right down the middle. For those advanced intermediate listeners, sometimes it's nice to step off of the center step. And what this step will do, it'll allow your uppercut to land between the defense a little bit more. And we're going to discuss that more when we do partner drilling and our pads, which is coming up next. One of my first ways and favorite ways to isolate the rear uppercut is to use the punch shield. You're going to see consistency with this as we discuss our punches. So we're going to talk about Matt. Matt's a southpaw, so this is going to be his rear uppercut, which is his left uppercut. So first things first, he's going to throw one without stepping. Let's see what he's got. Hands nice and tight, using good weight transfer, and watches, but you can see really he's turning that back foot in order to get his hip into the punch. That's no step. Matt's going to step now, step, and come in and uppercut back out. As you can see, when he steps in, and this is one of the keys I want to show you, when he steps in, he kind of wedges here to block off his center line. So this way it's harder for me to hit, and it hides the rear uppercut. So from here, he's going to mix in, bang. So when he comes back, watch how he kind of comes in with his shoulder slightly in front, which hides the uppercut. To make this a little bit more of an advanced drill, I'll get him to follow with his rear hook after that. The last follow-up to this uppercut, I'm going to get him to throw his lead hook after, which is my favorite to throw, rear uppercut, lead hook. So it's very important to make sure you add in a setup and you add in a follow-up after this uppercut. This uppercut is made to pop the chin and then finish with the hook. Now we're going to bring in Troy and show you how we use little mitts to set up the uppercut. All right, so here's Troy. We're going to use our little micro mitts, a little bit more accuracy when he's throwing it. So we're going to start with Troy in his nice tight shield, keeping his hand position. Start with a no-step uppercut, making sure his elbow's nice and close to the body. Step uppercut, and returns back. Now, it's important to set up the uppercut properly. One of the best ways to set it up is with your lead hand attack. We're going to start with a jab uppercut and just stop there and back. So he sets it up with his jab, follow uppercut. Another good setup is with your hook, follow your uppercut. Let's put them together. Hook uppercut, jab uppercut, jab uppercut. Now we want to finish like we just showed with Matt. Troy's going to finish with the uppercut. The lead hand, the first hand is going to be alternate. I'm just going to mix it up. Troy will just know, depending on where my hand is, which one he's going to throw. Follow the uppercut. Oh. There you have it, some of my favorite setups and some of my favorite finishes. Troy and I are now, we're just going to mix back and forth using partner drilling as I put my gloves on. Same way, instead of having pads, this is a nice interactive drill because you get to go back and forth. I use this more in my intermediate and advanced classes. So I'm just going to use blocking just to show control. You want to have control for the uppercut, so we're just going to follow with the shield back and forth. I'll start. So this way, it's forcing me to know where my uppercut is. If I can't just throw here, Troy's is going to stay there. I can't land this uppercut, so I have to set it up. So one of the ways I'm going to set it up, I might step out with my left hook to open up my body. And as you can see, I'm throwing my uppercut nice and close to his body. I'm not throwing it from here. I'm trying to get nice and close, pop that chin, and make that uppercut a nice surprise. So Troy and I are just going to alternate back and forth, and I'm going to keep my hand stationary. I'm going to change levels with my punches, make it more advanced. Now it's kickboxing, so let's have some fun. We're going to mix in any combination we want back and forth. There you have it, just practicing, getting that nice angle, keeping your partner just to stand there, and you have to find that uppercut. Good way to think of how to set it up, how to position your body in order to get the ultimate uppercut. So the best training tool for me and for anyone to work on their uppercut is the wall pad here, because the wall bag allows you to actually land the uppercut. It has a little perfect little target for you to work that and really dig and get good feedback that you won't necessarily get on the long bag. So I'm just going to flow with some of my favorite setups, my favorite different flow techniques off the uppercut, to show you guys how I like to set it up. And remember, I like to use the uppercut as a surprise, so don't sit there trying to show it. Mask it with some good punches. Boom! Finish with the uppercut. Find that uppercut. Right away, that lead hook needs to fly. Boom! Then you can go back. Different ways of setting and finishing with the rear uppercut. Okay, so I have Troy on the long bag, and it's a little bit more difficult to land your uppercuts on a long bag because there's no pad. So there's different ways Troy's gonna throw it. You're going to notice sometimes he comes more on like a forward angle so he can land his knuckles. Other times he almost scoops the bag and it just comes up. So you can see he's really getting close to that body and landing that uppercut, and he's showing good control. So he's mixing in impact and just skinning the bag. Different ways of working the uppercut on the long bag. I want to see Troy now mix in some of his kicks to follow, just to mix in some full kickboxing combinations. Okay, so another perfect bag to work on the uppercut is the wrecking ball. This is because it allows you to get good impact on the uppercut. It gives you the angle in order to, get good feedback and kinesthetic awareness in your knuckle to know how good your uppercut is. I want Matt to keep his nice uppercut nice and tight and show you how he sets it up and how he finishes with his rear uppercut. With Matt is an MMA fighter, and we have him now fighting, starting his professional MMA career very soon, and a very big weapon in his arsenal for MMA is the uppercut, because he's a good kickboxer and he's from Bazooka Kickboxing, he really knows that his opponents are going to take him down. So he's going to really utilize that uppercut when people try to shoot in. So here's Matt mixing in that uppercut, flowing the way he likes to flow with it. Now we're going to discuss some of the common mistakes when throwing the rear uppercut. And the first thing is going to be not using your legs. You're going to see a lot of people stay and keep their shoulders very stationary and try to throw this rear uppercut, which isn't loading up the power. You need to transfer that weight onto the front foot in order to get that good power. So as you just saw earlier, that back foot pivot is the key. Allow me to get my hip involved, allow me to get my shoulder in front, and to be able to get maximum power in that uppercut. So make sure you use the legs to get more power in the uppercut. And you got to remember, the uppercut, the transfer isn't coming up. There's a lot of mistakes of people think that you got to sit and pop up. I'm transferring the weight forward. That's the key. My weight is pushing forward and up. Forward and up. So you don't want to think just up, it's weight forward and up. So if you look in this way, it's not up, I'm going forward and up. This way I can transfer that weight from my feet and get more power. The second mistake people are going to make is obviously a common mistake in all punching techniques, is when you're not covering your head when you're throwing the shot. I use the analogy of always keeping one hand on the phone. So one hand on the phone as I throw the uppercut, and when it returns, it's coming right back to my head. Bang, right back to my head. Right back to my head. Don't drop this hand, and don't drop this after the uppercut, which brings in a third mistake, throwing the uppercut from too low. You see people, like I always talk about the tiger uppercut, where people basically scrape their knuckles and they end up so far. That works well in the fight games, not really much in fighting, or unless your opponent's really hurt. Focus on keeping the punch a little tighter. You don't have to load up the punch so much if you're using the legs. If you're not using your legs, yes, you're going to have to wind up to get power. But if you use good legs, you can keep the uppercut a little bit more tight, and this way you're more defensive. You've got to think more than just attacking. You got to think the defensive side. Keep your hand positioning up. Don't overloop your punch. The other thing is, how do you set up the uppercuts? There's a big mistake on constantly throwing the uppercut from the outside. If I'm throwing it from the outside, I'm open up, I'm not setting it up well. So you want to make sure it's set up really nicely. I like to use my jab, my hooks, and I follow well with it. So make sure you set it up properly, finish after. Think, how do you enter with the technique to land it, and how do I exit to avoid being hit and countered myself? The biggest mistake, which is the last one, is the elbow positioning. When you throw an uppercut, your elbow needs to be nice and linear. Keep your elbow closer to your body. Too many times people throw uppercuts with a lot of weight and being transferred out and leaked out of the elbow. You got to keep that elbow in. The uppercut is splitting a defense, so it's a very little window where you want to do it. In a good uppercut, you want to basically almost skin the body with the uppercut so the punch comes nice and close where you're skinning the body. Yes, there's long ones you can throw, but for that nice clean inside uppercut, make sure your elbow is nice and tight and follows the hand. There you have it, episode 9, the rear uppercut, a very important weapon, especially for MMA fighters, and it's a weapon not used enough, and it drives me crazy when every time you see an opponent hurt and guys are shelling up like this, fighters are just wildly throwing when all it takes is a nice little clean uppercut. So start looking more for the uppercut, set it up properly, finish after it. It's a very important tool in popping that chin and finishing. You can get many good knockouts with it, especially if you're a good striker in MMA like I was telling you with Matt. As people try to shoot in, it's that perfect weapon. Or if you're fighting a guy who's really good at getting his head down and fighting on the inside, really use that weapon to scare people from wanting to get on the inside. So use it as a surprise, use it properly, and use it with good technique. And that's what Bazooka Kickboxing is all about. So if you're liking these episodes, I'm going to say it again. Make sure you like it, make sure you comment, keep asking those questions, and keep learning Bazooka Kickboxing. Episode 10, now we're going to be discussing the lead uppercut. Last episode we discussed the rear. This time we're discussing the lead. The lead uppercut, similar to the rear, has to do with your legs, and all punching comes from the legs. And as you watched from episode 1 all the way now to episode 10, I'm a big believer, and I constantly talk about the use of the rear calf and weight transfer in your stance. And that's what makes the lead uppercut very effective. So I'm going to do it more from a stationary position first. And the key to that lead uppercut is that getting my right shoulder or that rear shoulder forward in order to load up the lead uppercut. So what you're going to see in my stance is I'm going to load up by doing that little back foot turn. And that's going to bring my hip and my shoulder forward. This way, if you look here, it takes me slightly off center line, and this will bring my uppercut right in a good position to land that nice, beautiful lead uppercut. So stationary first, throwing it. There's going to be that slight shoulder to come in front to load up that punch. Also, that puts weight on the front foot. So again, looking at my back foot, loads it up, hits. Keeping my elbow nice and tight in position. Now I'm going to mix it in with a step. As you can see, really transferring the weight on my front foot. This way I can land the lead uppercut. There's a good angle I want you to watch and how to get that last little dig into that lead uppercut. It's not, you can come in this position, but that's not enough. You need that movement of the hip coming forward and up. That's going to allow me to get more drive and more power in my uppercut. So if I'm turning and loading up and then just throwing from here, I'm missing out on using that lead hip. So when I turn over this shoulder, or if I want to call it a right hand feint from here, and then I want to boom, drive up that uppercut and really grind and get power into it. A lot of people, which I kind of like to do sometimes, depending, I might even get up on my heel on that front foot. So if I'm here leading in, I'm really pushing up and getting my hip up, and that's going to help me drive that weight and the power forward. Bang. So weight transfer and then pushing that hip up and getting on the ball of that foot and getting that heel up will really help you grind in that uppercut. Let's start looking at this on different pads so we can get some power behind it so you can see how effective this shot is in getting good power in the technique. All right, again, Matt back here using our punch shield. Single power, the best technique and the best shield and weapon and tool to use. Been loving this. So here's Matt using his lead uppercut. We're going to go on different angles to show you the power. So Matt's really transferring weight on the front foot and then pushing his hip, and he's just slightly getting off the heel. Boom, really grinding that uppercut. Different angles so you can see. Remember, Matt is a southpaw, so this is using his right uppercut. Loading up and throwing power. Okay, back on this position. One of my favorite ways to follow to make this a little bit more intermediate is we're going to throw hooks to set it up. So Matt's going to start off with a lead hook. Boom, shift his weight, land in that uppercut. Good way you can attack the body first, then come up. So Matt's going to just do 3 punches. This is going to help him really put that power 3-shot together to make it's going to make his lead uppercut more effective when he starts throwing power punches before. So he's going to throw hook, lead uppercut, hook. Set up, attack, finish. Set up, attack, finish. One more angle on this side, and then we'll bring in Troy with the little mitts. Matt's really using his body. He's using his body, his hip, and his rotation to get power in all of his strikes. Last time, give it. Boom. Here we go. I have Troy with the micro mitts. We're just going to do a little bit of flow with our lead uppercut. I'm going to set it up. Troy's really long and a tall range fighter, so we're going to set up that lead uppercut off of the jab. So he throws his lead jab, and then he's going to turn and feint. So see how he loads up the shoulder? He can add a fake or right feint, whatever he wants, but he needs to get that weight transfer on that leg in order to get more power. So here he is setting it up with the jab. A little bit more speed. Changing angles so you can see different positioning. Remember, make sure you really watch. We're going to move back, so make sure you get good foot position so you can see how he really uses his body to set it up. He uses the jab to close distance and then mixes in the uppercut. Sets it up with a hook. Yeah, and we can mix it up in any other straight punch. We're just going to flow a little bit. 1, 2, uppercut. Let's go cross hook, uppercut. Good. Uppercut knee. Jab, uppercut knee. Just uppercut. Move your head when you're ready. Whip. Oh, good. So different ways to flow, set it up, and you can finish with it as well. I'm here with Troy. We're going to do some partner drilling, a little bit more intermediate advanced style drilling. And a lot of times people constantly throw left, right, left, right. For this drill, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on our lead hand, and we're going to only attack with the lead hand right now to set up the lead uppercut. So Troy's just going to block. I'm going to set them up. And you're going to see one of my favorite ways, which a lot of people don't do, is hitting the body, follow the lead uppercut is one of my favorite. So we're going to go, Troy's going to stay nice and tight, and we're just going to set them up. Okay, we're going to change it up with a kickboxing love and just throw in some of our low kicks and kicks off of it. To make this a little bit more less advanced, you could always hold hand combinations with your hands back and forth. So let's do hook uppercut. I can come back. So just pick set drills and go back and forth with each other. This way it's an easier way. Different variations, but it's important to single out each exercise, put them in with a setup, add a finish, add all segments to the combination. All right, back to my favorite bag, which is the wall pad. Stationary target really allows me to work my distance. And you got to remember, every strike can be thrown at different distance, and you adapt through stepping, through lengthening your punch. So this is the perfect tool in order to use that and to work controlling your distance within each strike. So here I'm just going to start nice and close, mixing in my nice close range lead uppercut. I can step back a little bit. This way I just need to keep stepping. I might just have to step to get more power. Close, back, I'm stepping to get more power. I'm going to add in some different ways I like to set up my lead uppercut. So here's my jab, fake, uppercut. Hand position nice and tight. Another one of my favorites, I'll attack the body. From here, I'll rip up the uppercut. I can stay long, step in, and mix up my different ranges. Another one, set it up with your rear hand. One of the beautiful ones, people who always throw overhands, this is the perfect shot to come underneath now. Get the defense up, punch high, mix in the lead. So quick recap, I'm using my lead hand to set up the lead uppercut, or I'm using my rear hand to set it up. Either way, you can set both up. All right, here's Matt on that wrecking ball. Another good tool for mixing the uppercut. Because it's a rounded bag, you could really get in there and dig your uppercuts. Here's Matt playing around using his straight punches to set it up. Remember, you can set up the lead uppercut with a jab. So he's gonna use his jab, mix in the lead uppercut. He can mix it in hook lead uppercut. And he can mix it up with his rear hand. So he's gonna go rear hand, lead uppercut. So now he's going straight, but now I want him to really mix in his overhand left to lead uppercut. Another good way, Matt can get on the inside, head to head with the target, and I want him to mix in multiple uppercuts. So now he's fighting inside boxing, using his uppercut on the inside. Now he's gonna move back, and he's gonna use his lead uppercut from the outside. Remember, striking is about ranges. It's about knowing where and how far you are from your opponent. Make sure you practice close range, mid-range, and long range. Each weapon can be set up in all different ranges depending on your stepping and how you set it up. So here we are, Troy's using the long bag. It's a bag that's really hard to land uppercuts, so Troy's just gonna show different ways he's gonna set up his lead uppercut. So the first type of uppercut he can throw on the bag is one where it comes more on a 45, where he can still land his knuckles on the bag. So he can set it up, and he's gonna use that 45 style just so he can grind his knuckles. You're gonna see him punch lower on the bag when he throws that one. The other one Troy's gonna throw is where he just skins the bag. And this is more of your in-close style uppercut, right? Where you really wanna get that punch basically sliding up the sternum and that midline of your opponent. So Troy's gonna mix up the skin up hook and the one where he's able to throw more of a 45 to grind his knuckle. Because this is a kickboxing series, Troy's gonna mix in some kicks and knees and different ways he sets up and finishes off of his lead uppercut. Okay, discussing some common mistakes when throwing the lead uppercut. The first thing you want to look at is that foot position, and it's not using your legs. And now we're going to discuss some common mistakes when throwing the lead uppercut. The first thing is not using your legs, and you're going to see people just keeping your shoulders really square. So as I mentioned in the explanation of the technique, it's really important to get that little bit of a load up. You can use it as a right feint to load it up. You can set it up and turn, but it's very important to just get your head off a center line, rip up your uppercut, or at least load up the shoulder. Off center line, attack, or just rotate here in order to generate good power in your hip and your feet. So remember, that hip needs to come over and up. So this way, when I'm in here, I can get full power from my hip and drive from my legs. Second mistake is the hand positioning. When throwing it, I don't want to see this hand really drop because of counter punching, so make sure this hand stays up. And when you hit this lead uppercut, make sure it comes back into your position. That's the second mistake. The third one is when you load it up, you don't need to throw it from so low. You want to minimize that space from here to here. So I'm going to come tight, keep it tight, and return. Okay? I keep it tight and return. If someone's exiting, you can lengthen it up, but that's more of your up jab that we're going to discuss later on in the series. Last tip I really want you to focus on is elbow positioning. So when I'm here loading it up and I'm coming in, I want to make sure my elbows are nice and straight. I don't want to see these uppercuts coming on angles. Remember, it's an uppercut. If my guard is here, you have a small window to land in between, so make sure your elbow is nice and close to your body and the punch is coming straight up. You can talk about just rotating your hand a little bit. I call it corkscrewing the punch. So
When I'm in here, I might corkscrew my punch a little bit. That little bit of corkscrew will actually help me keep my elbow position in nice and tight rather than punching more vertical. I'll corkscrew slightly this way. It's easier to slip up and land that jab through the defense. There you have it, episode 10, the lead uppercut. Very effective weapon, one that I really like to use, especially in my recent training. I'm really trying to utilize that in sparring, and I'm catching a lot of people with it, helping me really attack the body, finish with my low kicks. So very good setup. So keep learning. Remember, those key technical points will help with a good lead uppercut. Next episode, we're going to talk about the knees. This is where it gets exciting for me because I'm known for a lot of my kicking, a lot of my knees. So it's very exciting for me to be able to share that side of this and start getting to more of the advanced techniques using our knees, kicks, and putting our combinations together. So keep following the technical series, keep liking, keep commenting, and keep learning bazooka style kickboxing. Fellow Canadian kickboxer Matt Embry here with me.
Please welcome Matt Embry.
So I asked him today if he can give you guys a tip. He comes from a solid Muay Thai background. You may have recognized him from Glory 33, New Jersey, where he knocked out Chi Bin Lin.
Wow, Embry! Down goes Lim! Mamma mia!
They knocked out Giga Chikadze.
Right hand! Down goes Chikadze!
He fought Robin Van Roosmalen. He fought Bare Knuckle with Sanchai.
Okay guys, I like to use my right low kick a lot, and as does Joe. So usually I just try and catch it either off of their forward momentum or I set it up off of a feint. I draw my opponent in. As he sets in, I kick long, guys. Usually what happens after, if you land a good one, the opponent is going to counter. So we're going to work off of that. So when I kick, boom, the foot touch, and I spring. Follow up with the right straight. And I use that forward momentum to power through, step to the side, boom, strong left knee, okay? Hand on the shoulder beside the head, tight. Put it together, he steps in, just like that. Good.
All right, there you have it. That was Matt Embry showing his technique of the week here. Follow it, use it. Anything booked right now?
Madison Square Garden in July, so you already know me and Bazooka here getting ready. He's helping me get stronger, working my kickbox game a little better, so wait till you guys see it. I'm gonna get that glory title just now.
Episode 12. Last week we discussed the rear knee. Today we're going to discuss the lead knee, which we're going to discuss different ways of landing it, whether it's through a switch and through a step. But make sure you watch episode 11. This way, a lot of the mistakes are the same. This way you get a recap and you could limit the amount of mistakes you're making on your lead knee. Right into the technicals aspect of it. As I always say, it all starts with good footwork. So let's start with our feet. So to throw the lead knee now, you need to create space and distance. Just throwing it here, there is no power. So you have to create either a switch or you have to create a step in order to lengthen the stance and get good power with the lead knee. So let's talk about the switch. And the switch is just your kind of skip stepping in and I'm throwing the knee. So you can see this as one foot comes forward, the other one comes back, loads up the knee. From this angle, hand positioning the same. As you see, I'm cutting off my opponent's punches and mixing in my knee, hands coming down to the same side, not coming on opposite side. Now, if your opponent is moving away, so if my opponent's starting to move back, the switch knee is not going to work because they are moving. That's when you'll do the step knee. Still hand position the same. Defense, I'm stepping, blocking the punches and landing my knee. Step knee, switch knee. Remember the key, keep your heel tucked to your butt. This way it's the sharper knee. Boom, heel tucked, knee coming forward. Same thing as the episode 11 technical series. We are making sure that we are counterbalancing our weight, making sure we're always falling into our stance. Control my foot and back down. If I'm step knee, come back down and I exit out. This way I'm always in control of my footwork. I don't want to see people here and falling forward. Shows lack of control in your stance, a lot of mistakes structurally. So make sure you can knee and control your placement down, and then I can exit out. So if I'm kneeing down, back and exit, always in control of good footwork. Okay, we're using the micro mitts again, and we're gonna start just basic. Remember, the micro mitts are very good for using controlled knees, and that's where you wanna always have control in all your strikes, especially in the footwork. So let's start with Matt. Because I'm staying close, Matt is gonna do a switch knee and come back. See how he controls his foot down, exits with the back foot. That shows good control in the footwork. Knee, step down, back foot exits. So closer knee, I'm in here. So I want him, if it's a little longer, he's going to be on his calf of his front foot. I want him to control it. If I'm going to the head, his plant foot is going to be on the heel. This way the direction of the knee comes up, heel tucked to the butt. Now if I'm exiting now and I'm moving back, this is when he's going to mix in a step knee. This way he has more distance to travel. So if I'm moving away here, controls. If I'm close, switch and step. Now traditionally, when you teach combination fighting, which is going to be an episode coming up after the kicking series, what we're going to do is we're going to mix opposite hand to opposite knee. So Matt's going to throw his cross to knee. That's the most basic way of setting up the lead knee. Now we're just going to flow our own. All right, back to the Thai pads. Again, two different ways to hold. If Matt's showing here, one on top of the other is the easiest, or the other way is one on top. And usually if I'm throwing my lead knee, it's going to be left knee, left hand in front. So Matt's just going to decide whatever he likes to throw. No right or wrong way of throwing it. Switch, and then I have different steps and switches. Now we're just going to mix in some kicks to knees. Don't worry too much about the kick technique. That's coming soon. I'm just going to use the long bag now. I'm going to start with the bag swinging. This way I can catch my timing. It's important to get good timing on the knee. So we'll start with the bag slightly moving. I'll time it. From there I'll flow in some of my favorite ways of landing it, mixing with my punches and my knees. All right, Matt Special here. He's using the wrecking ball. The reason why I like the wrecking ball for knees, it really reinforces bringing the knee up. These will help you in more closer range knees because you're taking the angle of the knee up. So you're thinking about popping that chin, and he's gonna mix it in with his boxing. If he wants, he could even mix in some body kicks. Mix in with his knees. Okay, we're gonna do some partner drilling, and we're just gonna have some fun. We're gonna mix in back and forth with step knees, switch knees. We're gonna mix in, you don't always have to hit the body. I do like to knee the body because it shows control and it toughens the partner's body, which a lot of people have weak bodies in fighting. So if you're gonna talk about landing the knee, it's also important to learn how to take a knee, and it starts by slowly building up your shield, your armor. So sometimes it's important to take knees to the body as well. So Matt and I are just gonna exchange back and forth, playing with different angles and ranges. Focusing on my hand position being tight. So for example, I'm gonna knee Matt and he's gonna try to counter me with punches. See, I can use my hands now to control. Okay, whether he throws a hook or straight punches, I can control and land. I'm defending his punches with my hands. So. Okay, traditionally, one of the best ways to set up the lead knee is with the rear hand. So let's go cross knee. Another way, another good setup is the hook, rear hook to lead knee. Okay, now we're just going to flow on whatever we want, taking these on the body. Okay, let's discuss some common errors when throwing the lead knee. The first one is going to be in our footwork. We need to make sure our plant foot when we're kneeing is that we're off the heel and on our toes. We need that counterbalance. I don't want to see you guys kneeing and falling forward. That's a lack of control in your footwork. So let's make sure we can knee, control the step down, and come back, and it starts with that counterbalance. Get off that heel, everybody. Mistake number 2 is how linear the knee is. A lot of people knee and their knees aren't straight. This is a clean, straight, linear knee. So let's make sure our knees almost rub through each other. This way, it's a nice linear knee. Mistake number 3, not tucking our heel to our butt. We're kneeing this way. Let's keep our heels to our butt, make it a nice, sharp, linear knee. Mistake number 4, hand positioning. Make sure our hand positioning is up. Make sure we're not kneeing and having our hands down to our sides. Just think about how open our head position is. So when we switch, let's keep our hands up. Okay, my hands are clean and up, defending my head at all time. If I'm reaching my hands out, let's make sure we pull our hands and quickly return back and get back into our structured position. There you have it, episode 12, the lead knee. Remember, it's a straight knee, so keeping our knees nice in line. And remember, you can do it as a switch or you can do it as a step, depending on the distance you are from your opponent. If your opponent's running a lot, use that step knee. If they're staying in the pocket, that's when you use that switch knee. So hope you're liking the series. Next week is a big one. We're going to start talking about our right power kick, which is my favorite things to teach. And I think an area where a lot of you listeners and a lot of you followers need a lot of work on. Bazooka style kickboxing is about power, and I'm going to show you how to develop the most power in your kicks. So hope you're enjoying the series. Comment, like below, ask questions, and see you next week. All right, welcome to episode 11 of Bazooka Kickboxing Series. We're finally where we can use our kicks and our knees in the series, and today's going to be about the knee, and we're going to really work on our rear knee. It's the first knee that I like to work on when teaching, which I like to teach the knee before the kick because it's a little bit more beginner and easier to throw, and it teaches you how to use your calves and to control your hips. So this is why it is a good reason to start with the knee before the round kick. So let's start. At this point, we know everything about technically keeping our hands. So for our knee, it's very important that our step is on point. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do a side view because it's easier. So when we step, I'm going to make sure we're on the ball of the foot when throwing this knee, and I'm going to lengthen my stance. Lengthening the stance is loading up the knee. This way I have more range and more distance to throw, which is more power. These inside knees are good, but ultimately we're looking at lots of power, and this is why we step. Now, the key to the knee, when I step, I need to stay off the heel, and hopefully you can see this in the video. I want you on the ball of the foot. So when you're on the ball of the foot, you can knee straight and come back. The reason why you get up on that heel is because it acts as a counterbalance. If I'm flat on my foot and I'm trying to knee forward, what's going to happen is it's going to be hard for me to control and bring my foot back. So by going on the calf, you're able to control the positioning, be able to knee and come back. Now, you're going to see my hand position, and when doing this, I'm going to do partner drilling with Matt, and you're going to see why I put my hands here. So when I knee, as I step, my hands are coming out. And as my hands come out, what it's doing is it's basically blocking off my opponent's punches. So if he's trying to punch, I'm blocking the punches, and that's my enter. A lot of people like to keep the hands out and put their knee to the hip, so I get both hands out, both hands to my right hip. This way it's really forcing me to use my hip and extend and get my knee going forward. Okay, the other thing I'm going to mention, this is a straight knee. So I'm looking at bringing my flight path straight, just like a straight punch, just like a jab. We're keeping it very clean and very basic. Yes, we'll discuss the round knees a little later, but this is a nice solid straight line knee. So step, and you can see my knee almost rubs my other knee. So it keeps the line nice and straight. The last point is where you want to hit. If I'm hitting straight and I'm looking at hitting the body, it's very important I get up on this heel. If I'm looking at kneeing up to the head, that is when I look to plant my heel on the floor. So I'm going to give you the difference. Knee and back. When I step, you can see the flight path coming up. So now it's coming up compared to when I'm on the ball of my foot, it comes forward. So knee to the head, knee to the body, keeping it nice and in line. So the last point I'm going to make is what you do with that knee position, with the leg that's kneeing. I want to make sure when you're kneeing, you have your heel tucked to your butt, and that's going to make it more of a sharp knee. So if I'm kneeing this way, you can see it's not as sharp. I want to hit with a nice strong point, like I'm using a sword or a knife. So when I tuck my heel to my butt, it makes it sharp. So this is the wrong way where I'm not tucking it, and this is more of that sharp knee when I tuck my knee compared to leaving it out. And that's when a lot of times I see people knee, and that's when you get those low blow shots. So to make that knee sharp, tuck your heel to your butt, get on that calf. There you have it, nice sharp long knees. Okay, so we're going to do our first drill here with Matt. I'm going to use the micro mitts again. Why I like using the micro mitts, it's because they can't overpower the knee, which forces them to control it. When you use the Thai pads, which we'll be using next, it's easy for someone to really use that rebound to set their position back. By using these, Matt has to be so precise and so sharp with his footwork that he's able to control his balance. So let's going to start. I'm only going to use one hand right now, and he's going to really focus on all those technical tips. Watch for him stepping on the foot, heel tucked to his butt, so it's a nice sharp knee. And I want to see him use his hands now. Steps out and pulls in. Okay, I can change it to the head where Now he's more planted and the angle of the knee comes up, and more forward knees. So I'm adjusting different heights, different ways for him to throw it. Okay, so the next part of this drill, I'm going to take it into more of an intermediate style drill. And what we're going to do is we're going to mix them with our punches. And this way, it shows flow. And it's a good way to set up your knees or with your boxing. So Matt and I are just going to flow a little bit with boxing to knees. And you're going to notice it's important to also punch after your knee. The knee doesn't necessarily mean the end of the combination. You might use it as a setup midway, and then he's going to follow hands. So we're going to show different ways. The most simple jab, I have a hook knee. I can do same side, put it together. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Uppercut. Three. Hook knee. Hook knee. 1, 2. Good. 1, 2, knee, hook cross. There you have it, some flow with boxing before the knee and after the knee. All right, so now we have Matt with the Thai pads. This is the more traditional way you're going to use your knees with the pad holder. So there's two different ways we're going to discuss holding before we do it. One is one on top of the other. This way is a little bit easier. Matt's going to show this way. It's a little bit easier because it's a big target, and whether I throw a right knee or a left knee, it doesn't matter, so it's easiest. So from here, working my step and just landing some knees on the outside. It's also important that when I teach knees and kicking, that we also switch stances. I'm a big believer recently in my martial arts journey that I want my guys to be able to fight both sides a little bit more from the beginner side. So I'm just going to go into my southpaw and throw some power rear knees at the same time. This way we can be functional and be able to throw power knees from both sides. The other way you can hold now, I'm going to go back to the right knee, is having one hand in front. This makes it a little bit more of a smaller target, but same idea. You can mix it in. Hand positioning. Sometimes I'll throw with my hands tight, so I mix which position I want to throw. So now a little bit more, we just showed boxing to knees. Now we're going to just do some kicks to knees. Matt's going to throw, let's go on this side for it. Right or left kicks is going to be kick, knee kicks, whatever Matt's going to do, we're just going to flow off of it. One of my favorite ways of teaching any combination that you've seen through the series, using partner drilling. And partner drilling doesn't always have to be in a sparring situation where we're going hard. Being able to control your technique is a very important skill, and the knee is the perfect time to use control, because we all know those people who we spar with who overthrow their knees and hurt their sparring partners. So knees are very dangerous to throw in sparring. So learning to control them in our drilling is very important in all strikes. So Matt and I are just going to do some combo back exchanging, using our punches or knees, whatever our favorite ways are, setting up and landing the knees. As you can see what I was talking about in the beginning, when I go to knee, I'm putting my hands on top of Matt. So this way, if Matt tries to punch, I can control his hands. So this is why I like to get my hands out. I could knee. It also shows I can knee in a clinch, but there's so many different ways to land it. Let's flow. All right, the wrecking ball, traditionally used more for a boxing technique, but it's the perfect bag to use more of those knee to the head style. So for me, I'm just gonna mix in some body kicking, mix with knees and boxing, some different flows. Okay, so the first drill Matt's gonna do on the long bag is he's gonna have the bag moving. So what he's gonna do is he's gonna try to time his knee as the bag comes in. Because to land a good knee takes good timing. So Matt's using and simulating when his opponent comes in, whether it's with boxing, whether it's trying to initiate a clinch, Matt's gonna use his straight knee. That's your basic timing. Now after that knee, Matt is just gonna flow and he can throw anything he wants and let him have his fun on the bag, focusing on that power knee. Since he's a southpaw, it's his left knee. Okay, let's run through some common mistakes. The first common mistake people are gonna make is when they step, they're not having their heel off the ground, and that's not counterbalancing their weight. So you're gonna see a lot of knee and fall forward, which is you want control. So be able to knee and bring it back. All starts with you stepping on the ball of the foot and keeping your heel off the ground. Second mistake when people are gonna make, and this angle will show it, they knee round all the time. Yes, there's a round knee, but you need a straight knee as well. So yes, have round knees and have straight knees, but this series is straight knees. So when you're throwing the straight knee, make sure your knees are rubbing close together. Third mistake, not having that heel. So make sure when you do knee, it makes it nice and sharp. You get your heel to your butt in return. The fourth thing I'm going to discuss is the hand position. One of my most frustrating things when I see people throw their hands is they throw the hands double on the hip. Make sure your hands come out. Remember, as we talked about, they're blocking punches and your hands are coming over. See how I'm still defending my head. I'm not sitting there. It's a close range shot. To do this in mid-range when someone's boxing is a big mistake. So make sure your hands are up. And that's mistake number 4. There you have it, episode 11, the rear straight knee. Very important to think about those mistakes because they happen a lot. Make sure, again, you're keeping all those 4 mistakes out of that knee because I see it way too often. So work on that step. And as I said from episode 1, stepping is one of the most important aspects in all of the strikes, and especially with the knee. Next episode, we're going to discuss the lead knee, which is a little bit different now because you're going to have to add switches or steps, but a lot of same concepts, a lot of same errors people make, and that's episode 12 next week. Hope you're enjoying the series. Hope you're enjoying all the other videos that we're posting. Keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep enjoying the technical series. All right, welcome to episode 13 of the Bazooka Kickboxing series. We're at the right round kick, one of my favorite weapons to throw, and a weapon I am known for. I'm known for my rear low kick, but it's the same kind of mechanics, and we're gonna focus on the body kick today because it's a kick that you use more often, whether you're starting on a bag, whether you're starting a beginner's kickboxing program, or it's your first day at a gym. They're gonna throw body kicks. I will touch upon the low kicks and high kicks later down in the series, but right now we're focusing on the body kick. And just like all of the other parts of the series, we're really focusing on our footwork. So we're gonna start with our feet and work our way up explaining this power round kick. And as I mentioned, it's a power round kick. So the style that I'm teaching is the style that's gonna get the most power in the kick. And it all starts from our footwork. So from the earlier episodes, you know what a defensive and an offensive stance is. And you want to start more in your defensive stance. This way you're able to block and control your footwork. Now, to get a good kick, you really need to step and get that momentum in the leg. So you're going to watch my step, and I like to use lines on the floor. This way it teaches you to know how to step and return, because enter and exit on any strike and any technique is very important. So I'm in my defensive stance. This way I can block. Now I'm stepping and I'm lengthening my stance, and that's one of the keys to a good round kick, is the lengthening of the stance. If I kick from a short stance, it's more of a forced kick with my hip. But to get that power kick I'm talking about, you need to step, lengthen the stance, and this way you can launch your kick with full power and full range of momentum. And I explain it like hitting a baseball. If you're playing baseball and you want to hit a home run, you're not going to hit a home run by bunting the ball or staying short. You really need to, use your body, use your rotation in order to get full power. And that's called transfer of force. So with the step, I'm using the power in my legs to bring it up to my hip to be able to turn and return to my stance. So when talking technically, when I step, I'm pushing off my rear calf, and that's the key in order to get that momentum coming forward. So I step, I'm on the ball of the foot, I'm really digging the ball of my foot into the ground, making good connection to the floor. Boom, my heel's off the ground. My knee is on top of my foot. I'm not stepping too far in front, because then I'm not going to have balance. So I'm stepping, knee on top of the foot, I'm on the ball of my foot, good connection to the floor. Now I'm pushing off the rear calf, and I'm lifting my body up. So this way I'm lifting my body up and I am rotating. I don't want to lean too far back because my balance off, and I'm not bringing the weight of my kick, of my body into the kick. So I want to keep and think pulling my body up, like someone's pulling a string from my head, and I'm rotating at the same time. So I'm up and rotating, and I'm making sure I stay on the calf throughout the kick. A big problem when people kick is they don't return their foot back to where the initial starting position was. So what happens is they kick, and then they fall down, and then they have to bring their foot down. That shows a lack of control in your technique and your footwork. And so you really have to stay on that calf. So defensive stance, I'll run it through you one more time. Defensive stance, I step, ball of the foot, push off my rear calf, and from here I'm going to pull my shoulder. As I pull this shoulder, this hip opens up, and I get good rotation. Staying on this calf so I can kick and return right back. Do not kick and drop your heel. You're going to end up losing balance, and you're going to fall in this position and not in your long, good framework stance. A new tool I've been using with my kickboxers, because I come from a Taekwondo background, is one of these little kick pads. I don't even know what they're called, but it's a good way to teach not overthrowing the kick, because a lot of times when people kick, and you're going to see it with shadow boxing a lot, they shadow box, and every time they kick, they're every time spinning around. So this little drill teaches that you don't always have to spin all the time. There's different ways. So I can kick and return. I can kick through, step, and come back, or I can kick right through. So those are the three different ways you can control after the kick. So kick, return, kick just slightly over and back, and then right through. So this teaches the whole kick and return style, and it gives a little bit of snap. And a lot of kickboxers who don't have traditional martial arts background have really tight hips. So this is a good way of strengthening and loosening up the hips. It's helped my guys tremendously. So here's Troy just working kick and return style rather than falling forward. I can even mix it with a jab. Change levels. Work flexibility by even trying to force them to go as high as possible. Really get them to stretch that hip out. Now while Troy's here, if you're newer to kickboxing and your hips might not be as flexible as you would like, sometimes it's okay to start with a low kick on the pad. So I can literally hold the pad to my leg here and get your beginners who may have even tight hips. Even hitting a body for some beginners who are watching the series are going to have a hard time. So start with low kicks, build that flexibility, build that strength in the hip up. So a simple way is here. Good. Then you have your traditional Thai pads, and then if you're good, you can even mix in high kicks with the pad. Okay, so I have Troy now. Very long fighter, very good at using kicks on the outside, so this is why I'm using him for this drill. We're going to set up the right kick. This is just going to be a little bit more of an intermediate drill. We'll start with the kick, and then we're going to mix in some punches and different ways to drill after. So the first basic thing you can do to make sure they're in a defensive stance, I could throw a leg kick, Troy's going to block. Now he's in his defensive position. Now he's going to step, launch, and then throw. Watch the lengthening of the stance to give him that powerful momentum. Okay, put it together. Now, I'm not going to go too advanced with the setups because a video in the next 2 or 3 videos, we're going to start talking about combination fighting. But the most basic way to set up your rear power kick is with your lead hand. That's the most basic, the most elementary. So it's going to be jab to round kick. I'm not going to get into too much detail, but that step is just going to be with the jab. As he steps with the jab, he does not move that front foot anymore. So he steps and he pauses, boom. Now, he's not moving that foot. That foot stays there. From here, he's going to launch. Put it together. A little harder way, a little bit more advanced. He can throw the opposite hand, return back, and then kick. It's a little bit slower, but it's good to work both sides. So that's punch to kick. Now we're going to do kick to punch because right from the beginning as a beginner, I like to make sure my athletes, my people at my gym know how to punch to kick and kick to punch. So we're going to start right away by kick to hook. Good. So now I want him to kick, plant, and then step with the hook. Kick, plant, step with the hook. Good. If you other way, you can do a right hand. This way it reinforces him to kick, plant, and throw again. So kick, puts his foot down, right hand. Boom. Forces him to bring that kick back faster. Now let's just flow a little bit. One of my favorite weapons, kick, punch, kick. Hook. Good, and repetition, very basic ways. Make sure you put that volume in. I'll literally count my guys down, 10, 9, 8, 7, get that repetition in the kick. Also, I'm gonna get Troy on the other side. It's also important to work the opposite side. I'm going to say 80-20 as a beginner. 80% he's going to use his power side, but 20% he should start working his opposite stance because it's going to help him develop his kick and teach him to fight from both sides. This here we'll stay a little bit more basic on his southpaw side. Okay, I have Matt Special behind me. He's working on the bag. He's a southpaw, so it's going to be his rear kick. So he's using his left kick. Here he's just flowing on the bag. Different ways of mixing in this kick. He's using punch to kick. I also want him to add kick to punch. Always varying punch to kick to punch, or kick, punch, kick. More power, Matt. Matt's staying active with straight punches, mixing in his kick. The good thing about the bag, you can start introducing level change. So Matt's gonna hit body, Matt's gonna hit low kick, and he's gonna hit high kicks, changing all levels in his kick. Okay, so one of our favorite tools to develop our kicks and our power here at Bazooka Kickboxing is the wall bag. And as you can tell from our pivot points that we like to use this, and we've been pivoting. I've been pivoting on this pivot point for the last 12, 13 years. It's one of my favorite spots. And it's very important to work on hitting a target that doesn't move. This way you can control your range, you can get full power into it. So right now I'm just gonna flow with the bag. I'm gonna mix in different ranges. I'm gonna throw low kicks, body kicks, and high kicks. So here's a little bit of flow. Make sure every so often you go to your opposite side and throw some kicks from here. Okay, so a very important concept, as I just mentioned, is the footwork. And I'm using this little T-line here to improve our step and our kick, because that's very important. So when we talk about center line stepping for the kick, there's two ways I really want you to throw the kick. You can step on the line, so I'm stepping over, so defensive, offensive. And now that I'm over, you can stay on center line to throw your kick and come back. But the key to me to get good power is you need to open up that hip. So if I'm here on center line, I want to step to the left of the center line. This way here, I can kick through the target. If I step on this side of it, you're going to notice I'm going to get that bent hip that I don't want. So I'm here behind the line. I want to step to the left of the line. This way I can kick through the target and I can get my hip involved in the kick. Same thing. If I am a southpaw now, I don't want to step to the left. I want to step over to the right. This way I can kick through the target, boom, and get more weight and more power behind the kick. So stepping center line or just off to open up your hip to get more power. Okay, now we're going to discuss some common mistakes. Start from the feet, work our way up. The first thing, as I mentioned when explaining the technique, is overstepping. You're stepping too close to the target where you're having to lean back. That exposes your chin, throws you off balance. So try to keep your weight on top of your front leg more. So when you kick, your weight's forward. That's actually going to put more weight into your kick, which is going to give you more power. The other thing that happens is we step on the ball of the foot, good step, and now all of a sudden people aren't comfortable, so they're going to step again to get closer. Trust your step. If you're stepping here, you need to launch from here. Don't get scared and be like, oh, I'm too far to reach again. Really reach and extend with that hip in order to get good power. I want to see the end position where you're in a straight line. If you're kicking and you're not pivoting enough, you're going to end up with your hip bent and you're leaking power on the hip. So make sure when you do step, you're nice and long and you reach with that hip. That's why you need that extra range. When you're too close, it causes a little bend in your hip. So again, I'm looking for full extension all the way throughout in the final kick. Another error people make with their feet is when they pivot, boom, they drop their heel. So what happens now, they can't counterbalance themselves and put them in their stance. So they'll kick, put their heel down, and then they have to readjust. You need to be able to kick and come right back into the position that you started. Start, bang, see I'm on my calf still, nice and long, full extension. I bring it right back. The other common mistake now, number 2, so that's our stepping. Number 2 is the flight path return. People like to kick and then they bring it so slow down on the other side. The way I like to throw it is after the kick comes, boom, you pull it right back down. This way your hand's positioned ready to fight. You can block, defend. So make sure kick, boom, the kick return comes back. Mistake number 3 is going to be our shoulder position. We're keeping our shoulders too square when we kick. What happens if we stay too square? That hip bend happens again and we're not getting rotation. It's going to stop us from pivoting. So as I step, make sure I pull this shoulder and it throws the hip. This way I can get my whole body into the kick. So pull that shoulder back as you kick, opens up the hips. Hand position, I don't mind whether you keep it planted or if you add the one hand out. I'm okay with both. Both have different purposes. Both are better in some situations over the other. Episode 14 of Bazooka Kickboxing Technical Series, and today we're talking about our switch kick, which is our switch lead kick. I'm an orthodox fighter, so it's going to be my left kick from an orthodox position, and I'm going to use my lead side attack. And again, like all of the weapons we talk about, and I'm going to repeat it in every episode of this series, it all starts from good footwork and good balance in our framework and our structure. So I like to use lines on the floor as a visual. For the video, I'm using a tape line, but all of these puzzle mats now all have lines in the floor, so it's easy to just use some of those lines on the floor. It's quicker and it's easier. So the key to a good switch left kick is starting with our feet in more of a defensive position. The biggest mistake people make is when they throw their left kick, they start with a very long stance. So when you have a long stance, it's really hard to switch. It becomes very slow and it becomes very difficult to move your feet in a quick way. And the switch kick, you want to throw it as quick as possible because it's a lot of switching happening and it's easy to get countered with punches. So it's a quick switch left kick. So it starts from more of a defensive stance. In this kick, you don't really lengthen your stance as much because it's more of a kick where you want to make sure you stay high and keep your head away. But it's a very effective weapon because the left switch kick is the closest weapon to your target. So a lot of old school martial artists in Kung Fu, Karate, they use a lot of their lead kick because it is the closest weapon to their target. So we're going to start with our footwork, staying in our defensive position. For those who haven't watched, you can follow the series from earlier on. I have an episode on defensive versus offensive footwork. So we're starting here with more of a defensive footwork. Again, I can block off of this, and a good left kick comes off a good block. So I'm here, 50-50. I have this tape line, and I'm going to keep this tape line between my feet this time. And this is going to make sure when I do a switch, I'm not switching my rear foot. And the line that is very important with that switch kick is this rear foot. And you want to make sure this rear line is straight. And I'm going to start off by saying one of the biggest mistakes people make is when they step to their left in this direction. So they'll bring their foot over and they land on the left of the line, which causes now a bent hip. If my target's over here, I don't want to be stepping this way because I end with that bent hip and it's going to take away power from my kick. So I'm going to make sure when I switch, my back foot stays on the right side of the line. This way I can kick through my target. Now if you watch my foot position, what's happening is my back foot is making a straight line. So from my back foot comes up straight. I'm going to keep my heel on the line. As my front foot is going to do a half moon. So I'm half mooning my front foot and my back foot's coming up straight. So when you see it, you can see the direction, the way my kick is moving. Foot on the right side of the line. The other thing, key to a good kick, is this lead shoulder. When I throw this shoulder, I want to keep my left side in front of me. When I switch, I don't want my shoulder position to change. Because that quick moment when you're square, you're going to eat a lot of straight punches. So you want to make sure you stay heavy on your left side. I'm on my tape line. Left side in front, I can switch and kick, and I stay defensive throughout. And as you notice, another thing people do, which is as a mistake, is they constantly overthrow their kicks. So they'll throw their left kicks and spin around. You don't always want to spin your kicks around. It shows lack of control in your hips. So here, we're going to work it to be able to kick right back down, back foot exits. Seeing my hand position, I can keep my hands tight up top, or I can let my left hand go and make sure I block my head with my hand position. There you have it. We're going to start doing drills on the bag now where I can show you how to implement the power to it. So here's Troy Sheridan, just using your traditional long bag, your tie bag. And right here, he's just gonna flow with some different combinations. Kick to punch, punch to kick, and kick, punch, kick, all focusing on his switch left kick. I like the way Troy's using his jab to his left kick, and he also uses his right hand to his left kick, constantly changing how he sets up his left kick. So one of my favorite ways to develop any of my single power techniques, and it's with stationary bags, and this is my favorite, the wall bag, the pole bag, whatever you want to call it. And as you can see in our footwork is constantly using this with all our pivot points, which is one of my favorite bags. I've been using this bag for 13 years developing my kicks. So let's get to it, focusing on keeping that left side in front and getting as much power as I can shooting towards the wall. I can add singles or doubles as well. Can also change levels with my kicks. Adding hands. All right, here back with Troy Sheridan. I'm going to be holding the pads and he's going to be throwing his left kick on the pads, focusing on all those coaching tips that I just gave you. So let's start right away, and then from there I'll talk about what Troy's doing. So right away you see him in a defensive stance. One of the easiest ways to make sure he's in control of his stance, he can block and bring his foot down. So now we know he's in a good defensive stance where he can block. From here he's going to find his distance and mix. You can see his heel line coming nice and straight, good power. Another good tip for power, if you watch Troy's foot line, not only is his rear foot staying on the line, he's slightly going out to his right. This way he can put more weight and more power. His ultimate goal is to push me back this way. And if you look at his kick, it's coming more circular, which is very important. A lot of people throw their left kick more up, which you're not going to get a lot of rotational power. So Troy is stepping slightly outside, getting good power to try to force me back to the ring. Take some view from the other side so you can see his shoulder position staying really tight on his left side so he's not open to counter punches. Okay, watch the way Troy's kicking, putting his foot down, then exiting, because it's very important to add the footwork before and the footwork after to keep good defense and good range. A few more. Double kick. Single, double, okay, to make this drill a little bit more of an intermediate advanced drill, and we're going to touch upon combination fighting in the next few episodes from here. But just for the left kick, we're going to talk about different ways to set it up and different ways to finish with it. And we're just going to flow with some of our favorite ways. We're going to do punch to left kick. We can do left kick to left knees. We can go kick, punch, kick, but all focusing on setting up the left switch kick.
All together. Hook.
Okay, Troy and I are going to take it again to that intermediate advanced level, and we're going to be partnering and countering back and forth. So we're just going to start basic, catching off the block, and then we're going to add straight punch to kick. So we're going to exchange left kicks back and forth.
Right cross. One, two. Kick, punch, kick. Okay, hook kick. Let's go kick to knee. There you have it. Okay. So now we're going to discuss some of the common mistakes, and it's going to start with the footwork, and that's where most of the problems occur. And the first mistake that people make is they start from a stance that is way too long. If your stance is too long, it takes too long to switch. So you want to make sure you're in that defensive stance so you limit how much distance you're switching. The second mistake people are going to make is the line of that heel. So I want to make sure my front foot goes in line with my opponent, not stepping off this way. If I step off this way and try to kick this way, I end with that bent hip and we're leaking power from the hip. So make sure that heel line stays in line and you keep a nice linear. You don't want to be too square, so it limits that, which is the third mistake. Now, don't square your shoulders up when you kick. Stay heavy on this left side. This way you can still defend yourself with punches. The last mistake I'm going to talk about is that hip. So what's happening is when we're kicking with that bent hip. So one tip that I like to use when teaching it is focus on pushing your hip through a few times before you kick. So if you can see my load up before the kick, 1, I want my hip direction to go this way. So I'll push 1, 2, and then when I kick, boom, I can push my hip. Remember, the end goal is not to end this way, it's to end in a nice straight line. So make sure you keep your footwork, you keep your shoulder position very nice and small target. This way you're not open to straight punches when throwing that left kick. There you have it, episode 14, the lead switch left kick. And a very important weapon when it comes to fighting because it is the weapon that's closest to your opponent. And it's a strike that's actually really technical. I feel it's more difficult than your right kick because of the switch. And it's usually the kick that takes a little bit more time to perfect, a little bit more time to practice. A good suggestion, as I mentioned in the previous episode, episode 13, it's important to switch stances sometime. And by going southpaw to throw your left kick,
teaches your hip to work, teaches you to use your calves, teaches you to use your bad side. So after you do a few from a southpaw, go back to your orthodox position, then throw your lead switch kick. It usually gives you that little bit more of the confidence, and it teaches you that motor pattern in order to get a better switch left kick. We're going to start next episode discussing more about building combinations. Some of my favorites, as those who watched all my career and seen my fights, I'm a combination-based fighter, love throwing combinations. So next week is going to be the start of how to throw, learning how to throw good style, bazooka style combinations. All right, welcome to episode 11 of Bazooka Kickboxing Series. We're finally where we can use our kicks and our knees in the series, and today's going to be about the knee. And we're going to really work on our rear knee. It's the first knee that I like to work on when teaching, which I like to teach the knee before the kick because it's a little bit more beginner and easier to throw, and it teaches you how to use your calves and to control your hips. So this is why it is a good reason to start with the knee before the round kick. So let's start. At this point, we know everything about technically keeping our hands. So for our knee, it's very important that our step is on point. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do a side view because it's easier. So when we step, I'm going to make sure we're on the ball of the foot when throwing this knee, and I'm going to lengthen my stance. Lengthening the stance is loading up the knee. This way I have more range and more distance to throw, which is more power. These inside knees are good, but ultimately we're looking at lots of power, and this is why we step. Now, the key to the knee, when I step, I need to stay off the heel, and hopefully you can see this in the video. I want you on the ball of the foot. So when you're on the ball of the foot, you can knee straight and come back. The reason why you get up on that heel is because it acts as a counterbalance. If I'm flat on my foot and I'm trying to knee forward, what's going to happen is it's going to be hard for me to control and bring my foot back. So by going on the calf, you're able to control the positioning, be able to knee and come back. Now, you're going to see my hand position, and when doing this, I'm going to do partner drilling with Matt, and you're going to see why I put my hands here. So when I knee, as I step, my hands are coming out. And as my hands come out, what it's doing is it's basically blocking off my opponent's punches. So if he's trying to punch, I'm blocking the punches, and that's my enter. A lot of people like to keep the hands out and put their knee to the hip, so I get both hands out, both hands to my right hip. This way it's really forcing me to use my hip and extend and get my knee going forward. Okay, the other thing I'm going to mention, this is a straight knee. So I'm looking at bringing my flight path straight, just like a straight punch, just like a jab. We're keeping it very clean and very basic. Yes, we'll discuss the round knees a little later, but this is a nice solid straight line knee. So step, and you can see my knee almost rubs my other knee. So it keeps the line nice and straight. The last point is where you want to hit. If I'm hitting straight and I'm looking at hitting the body, it's very important I get up on this heel. If I'm looking at kneeing up to the head, that is when I look to plant my heel on the floor. So I'm going to give you the difference. Knee and back. When I step, you can see the flight path coming up. So now it's coming up compared to when I'm on the ball of my foot, it comes forward. So knee to the head, knee to the body, keeping it nice and in line. So the last point I'm going to make is what you do with that knee position, with the leg that's kneeing. I want to make sure when you're kneeing, you have your heel tucked to your butt, and that's going to make it more of a sharp knee. So if I'm kneeing this way, you can see it's not as sharp. I want to hit with a nice strong point, like I'm using a sword or a knife. So when I tuck my heel to my butt, it makes it sharp. So this is the wrong way where I'm not tucking it, and this is more of that sharp knee when I tuck my knee compared to leaving it out. And that's when a lot of times I see people knee, and that's when you get those low blow shots. So to make that knee sharp, tuck your heel to your butt, get on that calf, There you have it, nice sharp long knees. Okay, so we're going to do our first drill here with Matt. I'm going to use the micro mitts again. Why I like using the micro mitts, it's because they can't overpower the knee, which forces them to control it. When you use the Thai pads, which we'll be using next, it's easy for someone to really use that rebound to set their position back. By using these, Matt has to be so precise and so sharp with his footwork that he's able to control his balance. So let's gonna start. I'm only gonna use one hand right now, and he's gonna really focus on all those technical tips. Watch for him stepping on the foot, heel tucked to his butt, so it's a nice sharp knee. And I wanna see him use his hands now. Steps out and pulls in. Okay, I can change it to the head where now he's more planted and the angle of the knee comes up, and more forward knees. So I'm adjusting different heights, different ways for him to throw it. Okay, so the next part of this drill, I'm going to take it into more of an intermediate style drill. And what we're going to do is we're going to mix them with our punches. And this way, it shows flow. And it's a good way to set up your knees or with your boxing. So Matt and I are just going to flow a little bit with boxing to knees. And you're going to notice it's important to also punch after your knee. The knee doesn't necessarily mean the end of the combination. You might use it as a setup midway, and then he's going to follow hands. So we're going to show different ways. The most simple jab. I have a hook knee. I can do same side. Put it together. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Uppercut. Three. Hook knee. Hook knee. 1, 2. Good. 1, 2, knee, hook cross. There you have it, some flow with boxing before the knee and after the knee. All right, so now we have Matt with the Thai pads. This is the more traditional way you're going to use your knees with the pad holder. So there's two different ways we're going to discuss holding before we do it. One is one on top of the other. This way is a little bit easier. Matt's going to show this way. It's a little bit easier because it's a big target, and whether I throw a right knee or a left knee, it doesn't matter, so it's easiest. So from here, working my step and just landing some knees on the outside. It's also important that when I teach knees and kicking, that we also switch stances. I'm a big believer recently in my martial arts journey that I want my guys to be able to fight both sides a little bit more from the beginner side. So I'm just going to go into my southpaw and throw some power rear knees at the same time. This way, we can be functional and be able to throw power knees from both sides. The other way you can hold now, I'm going to go back to the right knee, is having one hand in front. This makes it a little bit more of a smaller target, but same idea. You can mix it in. Hand positioning. Sometimes I'll throw with my hands tight, so I mix which position I want to throw. So now a little bit more, we just showed boxing to knees. Now we're going to just do some kicks to knees. Matt's going to throw, let's go on this side for it. Right or left kicks is going to be kick, knee kicks, whatever Matt's going to do, we're just going to flow off of it. One of my favorite ways of teaching any combination that you've seen through the series, using partner drilling. And partner drilling doesn't always have to be in a sparring situation where we're going hard. Being able to control your technique is a very important skill, and the knee is the perfect time to use control, because we all know those people who we spar with who overthrow their knees and hurt their sparring partners. So knees are very dangerous to throw in sparring. So learning to control them in our drilling is very important in all strikes. So Matt and I are just going to do some combo back exchanging, using our punches or knees, whatever our favorite ways are, setting up and landing the knees. As you can see what I was talking about in the beginning, when I go to knee, I'm putting my hands on top of Matt. So this way, if Matt tries to punch, I can control his hands. So this is why I like to get my hands out. I could knee. It also shows I can knee in a clinch, but there's so many different ways to land it. Let's flow. All right, the wrecking ball, traditionally used more for a boxing technique, but it's the perfect bag to use more of those knee to the head style. So for me, I'm just gonna mix in some body kicking, mix with knees and boxing, some different flows. Okay, so the first drill Matt's gonna do on the long bag is he's gonna have the bag moving. So what he's gonna do is he's gonna try to time his knee as the bag comes in. Because to land a good knee takes good timing. So Matt's using and simulating when his opponent comes in, whether it's with boxing, whether it's trying to initiate a clinch, Matt's gonna use his straight knee. That's your basic timing. Now after that knee, Matt is just gonna flow and he can throw anything he wants and let him have his fun on the bag, focusing on that power knee. Since he's a southpaw, it's his left knee. Okay, let's run through some common mistakes. The first common mistake people are gonna make is when they step, they're not having their heel off the ground, and that's not counterbalancing their weight. So you're gonna see a lot of knee and fall forward, which is you want control, so be able to knee and bring it back. All starts with you stepping on the ball of the foot and keeping your heel off the ground. Second mistake when people are gonna make, and this angle will show it, they knee round all the time. Yes, there's a round knee, but you need a straight knee as well. So yes, have round knees and have straight knees, but this series is straight knees. So when you're throwing the straight knee, make sure your knees are rubbing close together. Third mistake, not having that heel. So make sure when you do knee, it makes it nice and sharp. You get your heel to your butt in return. The fourth thing I'm going to discuss is the hand position. One of my most frustrating things when I see people throw their hands is they throw their hands double on the hip. Make sure your hands come out. Remember, as we talked about, they're blocking punches and your hands are coming over. See how I'm still defending my head? I'm not sitting there. It's a close range shot. To do this in mid-range when someone's boxing is a big mistake. So make sure your hands are up. And that's mistake number 4. There you have it, episode 11, the rear straight knee. Very important to think about those mistakes because they happen a lot. Make sure, again, you're keeping all those 4 mistakes out of that knee because I see it way too often. So work on that step. And as I said from episode 1, stepping is one of the most important aspects in all of the strikes, and especially with the knee. Next episode, we're going to discuss the lead knee, which is a little bit different now because you're going to have to add switches or steps, but a lot of same concepts, a lot of same errors people make, and that's episode 12 next week. Hope you're enjoying the series. Hope you're enjoying all the other videos that we're posting. Keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep enjoying the technical series. Okay, so we're here at episode 15, and it's the start of building combinations, bazooka style. So I have Troy here right off the bat. We're going to show different ways and discuss how we use our lead hand and our rear leg. So this is going to discuss how we can either use a jab, we can use a lead hook or an uppercut, now that we know how to throw this from the series properly. And that's going to set up our power side kicking or our power side knee. So we're looking at using our round kicks or our knees off of a lead hand attack. And we're going to start basic and we're going to build it up. The most basic in bazooka style kickboxing when it comes to combinations is going to be our jab and our round kick. So we're going to start with that, and then the other combinations will be easier once we discuss it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is that footwork, just like every other episode. So we're going to only step once. And what we're going to do is we're going to jab, and as I jab, I'm going to step on the ball of my foot and lengthen my stance. From this lengthened stance, this is when I'm going to throw my round kick from here. Back where my foot started and back to my defensive stance. And that's the key. So we're going to start from a defensive, load up with my jab, and kick. So it's very similar when you watch the round kick video. We step and then through the kick. Same concept, but instead of just stepping, you're adding the jab. But the biggest mistake people make is they jab, and then they step with their jab, and then they step with their kick. So there's having to step twice to do the jab round kick, where I'm telling you I only want you to step once. So I'm stepping on the ball of the foot, good connection to the floor, and throwing my round kick. I'll throw a few for you guys to see it in full motion. Keeping my good hand position nice and tight. And the key is, after I kick, I return right to my stance, right back to my defensive positioning. One more. Okay, so that's the basic one. So I'm going to challenge you guys to only step once, and that's only stepping with the punch. Like I said in the kick episode, to get more power with your kick, you need to have more of a lengthened stance, and it's the jab that sets that up. We're going to apply the same technique now with our right knee. So it's going to be a jab, right knee. Still focusing on one step. As you can see, one of the keys, I'm always on the ball of my foot. This way I can get and counterbalance myself back to my original position. One more. For the knee, it is a shorter weapon. If you feel like you need to step in a little bit, it's not as bad as doing it with the round kick. So for example, if I jab and they're still far away, I might step in again in order to close my distance and get more power. So the second form of techniques, which is my favorite, and you got to think, these are how combinations usually end. And if you talk about all the ways that Dutch style kickboxing ends with the left hook, right kick. So now we're just going to throw the end of the combination. And you have to be able to flow between your punches and your kicks. And that's what makes kickboxing beautiful to watch. That's what makes kickboxing so amazing, is how we can switch levels so efficiently and so quickly. So let's go with our left hook, right kick. As you can see, I'm only stepping on my jab. Same technique with the right knee. Okay, the third one is we're going to use the same type of concept, but we're going to throw lead uppercut, round kick. Again, from that lead hook episode, I'm not looking at here. I need you to turn that shoulder, load it up to get more power on that lead hook. Okay, with the knee now. Okay, now we're going to put the two together. The three together. We can add
jab, hook, uppercut. We can add jab, hook, jab, uppercut. You can put all three together. The pad holder's going to decide which 2 or 3 we're going to throw, and we can follow with a rear kick or a rear knee. Which ones?
Jab, uppercut, hook. Jab, hook. Hook, knee. Hook, jab.
Only 2 now. So that was 3 in a row. Troy's only going to do 2, so it's a little quicker. What's that, sir?
Hook, jab. Jab, hook. Hook, hook, knee. Jab, hook.
You said knee? Gotta be louder.
Jab, hook. Hook, uppercut.
There you have it, different lead attacks to rear kicks or knees. Okay, so just like all the other attacks, we like to do it with partner drilling. This way it's a little bit more interactive and you get to see where you're landing, especially with the kick. So we're going to start very basic. Troy and I are just going to flow with different lead hand to rear attack setups. So Troy, let's start with jab round kick. And you can see Troy and I, we're going to be using the low kick right now. It doesn't matter, I can always take the body too. For example, now I can kick the body. Okay, I can kick the leg or the body, up to you. Double jab. Jab, hook, kick. To make it more advanced, I can even take the hook to the body. Changing levels even with my hook and my kick. Okay, same thing at a knee. Use the hands. Good. Okay, let's go jab, uppercut, knee. Okay, add a kick or let's add a kick to that one. Okay, now to make this now an advanced drill, what we're going to do is we're just going to get Troy to keep his hands nice and tight, and we're just going to be able to flow any technique, any level, whether it's a kick or a knee, lead hand to rear. So you're going to hold tight. Sorry. Okay, so here's Troy. He's using the wrecking ball, and he's going to focus on lead hand, rear knee, mixing in different flows. I want him a little bit more active with his lead hand and focusing. He's going to constantly change up what lead hand he's attacking, double, triples, singles, whatever he prefers.
So I'm just going to be using the Thai bag or your long bag. This is probably the best tool to use to work this type of combination drilling. Lead hand, rear kick. This way I can change levels on my kicks and I can be active and change levels with my lead hand attacking. For those who know my style of fighting, this is the basis to all of my combinations, and a lot of that, what people call that Dutch style kickboxing, is that left hook, round kick. And I'm just going to flow. I'm going to go kick, lead hand, kick, which is one of my favorites. Too many times when people are hitting the bag, focusing on lead hand, rear kick, they only punch to kick. I challenge you guys now to kick, punch, kick, because this way, you know, you're really changing the pace of the fight. And usually when people kick, it's the end of a combination, but in our case, it's just the beginning. Okay, now I'm going to discuss some common mistakes, and the biggest mistakes come from our stepping and our footwork. And so what you're going to see, the biggest mistake people do is they step for the first punch and then they have to step again for the kick. So like I said, when we're doing the drilling, I'm challenging you to only step once. Step with the jab, trust your stance, and launch from there. The second one is people jab and then they pause a little bit to kick. This is combination fighting now. The two strikes have to flow. So try to improve the timing and the speed that this combination is going to throw. You're going to be able to throw more efficiency. You're going to be able to throw more strikes in your combination if you can flow better between it. And one of the good techniques is even when I jab, I use that movement to drive my next technique. And that's why opposite style combination help you with volume style striking. Next week we're going to be discussing same side, rear hand and the other left kick. So that's the base to good, clean, smooth combinations. The other thing I want you to keep in mind, which is a big mistake, when you add multiple strikes to a combination, hand position starts going all over the place. So make sure you keep good attention to where your hand positioning is. So if I'm kicking, my hands are staying tight throughout. I'm not moving my hands so much as the combinations build, which I'll show more as we get into more advanced combination fighting.
Good.
All right, there you have it, episode 15, the start of building combinations. One of my favorite ways to throw combinations, using my lead hand to set up my rear attacks, especially my right low kick. So left hook, right low kick, my favorite combination style fighting. Remember, you can't, yes, this is just a piece of combination fighting, but it's a very important piece. To be able to flow from punch to kick, kick to punch is what makes kickboxing so beautiful. And this is what really shows me the difference between more of a mediocre fighter to an advanced fighter. In my opinion, too many fighters out there either just throw their hands, just throw their kicks, or it's a single kick. There's no follow-up, and kickboxing is made for combinations, for flow. So start putting combinations together, and I want you guys to start adding them into your fights. Punch to kick combinations, kick to punch. We'll get more advanced as the series progresses, but this is the base to good combination fightings. Really break it down, keep it very simple. Lead hand, rear kick, or lead hand, rear knee. Start to good combinations. Next week we're going to work on our rear hand to the lead side attacking, so straight rights to left kick. We have hooks to kicks, hooks to knees, punch to knees. So that's the good start to combination building. When we put them all together, you'll be able to flow with all weapons, anywhere, anytime. Bazooka style kickboxing. Hope you're enjoying the series, and let's continue to grow. All right, episode 16 of the Bazooka Technical Series, and this is going to be part 2 of the beginning of building combinations. Last week we talked about using our lead hand attack, followed by our rear knee or a rear kick, and that's the basis to combinations. You want to do lead to rear, or then we're going to go rear to our lead attack, and that's going to help us on our following episode, which is going to be putting all of these different combinations together in more volume and in more of a sequence. So that's where we're going to put more combinations together next week. So as of now, we're going to work on rear attack and using our lead attack. And some of the biggest combinations we're going to work on is our right straight to left kick or right straight to left knee. Those are the basis to any opposite side attack and combination. So right now I'm going to bring in Troy and we're going to start showing you different ways to build in these types of combinations. Okay, so I have Troy Sheridan here with me and we're going to start building the combinations. So the key thing I want you to remember here, if you're just seeing this episode and this is the first time you're watching the technical series, go back, learn how to throw a proper straight right, learn how to throw your switch left kick, and then this way building combinations becomes easier rather than just throwing a crappy right hand and a crappy left kick. You're learning to do both properly with technique. So we're going to start off with our basic one, straight right, left kick. We'll do a few of those, and then we're going to do straight right, follow left knee. So the key thing I want you to do and on the start of any combination is make sure you step. So I'm going to ask you to step for the right hand. Now I don't want you in your stance too long, because after this, the switch is going to be too hard and too long. So when you throw your right hand, it's more of a right straight. So I'm not overly throwing it. I'm keeping my footwork nice and controlled and nice and short. This way my switch isn't so long. Some on the other side. Making sure I'm always on my calf, returning to my position. So it's important to enter. So I'm entering with my step. I kick, I put down my lead foot, I pull my back foot out. It's important to build exits to your combinations. Otherwise, you're falling into mid-range, which makes it very difficult to move exit and you're open to counter punches. So building the exit to your combination. There's my exit. Walk in, enter, exit. Enter, exit. Back to the other side. Now we're going to build in the left knee. Okay, some other hand attacks you can do is we're going to throw right hook, left kick. So again, rear hand to lead kick. That's the basis of today's lesson. Same combination now with the lead knee instead. So there you have it, different ways to use your rear hand in your lead side attack. So the last one you can do, it's the rear uppercut to your attack. And remember, anytime you go through my series, they're numbered. And anytime you see a rear something, that's the one you want to follow. So I have a rear straight, I have a rear uppercut, and a rear hook video. Learn those techniques and then learn how to throw the switch left knee and the switch left kick. Then you put them together. This way everything is with good technique. Uppercut, left kick. Knee. So those who follow my series know how important bag work is to bazooka kickboxing and bazooka kickboxing style. So Troy here is just using any rear attack focus knee, and here he's using the wrecking ball. This way it shows a good angle for his knee. So he's really using his straight right lead knee. That's one of Troy's favorite combinations. Then he can mix that in with a rear hook to lead knee. With the wrecking ball is pretty good because you can also work almost 45 body kicks. So Troy can work on his left 45 kick at the same time. And then mixes it with knee. And it's not a bad thing. Troy, once in a while, uses his jab just as a range finder, but then you can see how he really sets his rear hand for the power. Okay, so one of the easiest ways in the bag that most people have in their gym is the long bag or the tie bag. So this is a perfect bag. Why I like the long bag is because you can play with ranges a little bit more. I don't constantly have to stay long. I can mix in inside fighting. I can mix in lead low kicks, body kicks, high kicks. So this bag allows you to mix levels, and that's what makes fighting from a beginner to an intermediate level is have the ability to change levels, and this is the bag that allows you to do it. So you're going to see me mixing different levels with my punches, whether it's straight hooks or uppercuts. Just like all of our other episodes, using a partner back and forth drilling will take it from a beginner to more of an intermediate advanced style drilling. So Troy and I are just going to flow off of it. We're going to start with our straight right, follow left kick, straight right, follow knee, and we're just going to flow together. So just try to follow along. Right cross, left knee. Oh, good start. Left kick. Hook knee. Let's go uppercut kick. Uppercut knee. Okay, now we're just gonna mix in rear low kicks off of it. So just take it off the leg. So I'm gonna do right straight, inside low. So this way now we're changing levels, changing directions. Hook inside. Okay, to make it even more advanced, I'm gonna use it and I'm gonna try to attack the back leg now. So I'm gonna throw hook, back leg. So now the person can throw anything. We're just going to use our guard. And come over here for a sec, Troy. We're going to use our guard, and the person who's attacking can mix in whatever they like. I can go inside, body kick, rear leg, whatever I want. Good. Constantly change levels and mix levels with your kicks and your punches. That will take any basic combination from a beginner to an intermediate level. So we're going to discuss 3 common mistakes when using your rear hand lead kick to build your combinations. The first thing is having your stance too long. When you're here with a long stand, you don't want to have such a long stance because it's very difficult to switch and it's too slow. So remember what I mentioned earlier, make sure you have a shorter stance once you plan on switching your stance. That's the first one. The second one is not building in an exit. And fighting is about back and forth action. So you want to be able to hit and avoid being hit. That's why we implement exit. So after my combination, remember, foot comes down, back foot exit. If you're more of an advanced style fighter, you're able to throw your kick. You can come back southpaw if you want, and then back into your orthodox position, or one of the ways I like to do it, boom, foot back down, right on the floor, back out with your foot. Create an exit. The third one is hand positioning when doing all these combinations. You want to make sure your hand position is nice and tight defensively, because anytime during your combination, your opponent can counter you. So you want to make sure your hand position is nice and tight. So when I'm throwing, my hand position is constantly tight. The biggest mistake I see people make, their hands are constantly flaring all over the place. So with bazooka style kickboxing, we like to have a nice strong structure in our feet as well as pillar in our hands. Bang, bang, foot position, exit, everything nice and strong, nice and powerful, and nice and clean. So there you go. This is the second part of building basic combinations. The first part is lead hand rear attacks. Part 2, which was today's episode, which is rear hand lead kicks and attacks. So now that you know both, next episode we're going to be putting more volume and more progression together. So we're going to be working on punch to kick combinations, focusing on any attack, so I can end with my left hand to throw my rear kick, or I can finish with my right hand and attack with my lead side. So it's going to be punch kick combinations. The episode after is going to be one of my favorites, is kicking first, then following hands. Both very important ways of building combinations. Hope you're enjoying the technical series, and we'll see you next week. Episode 18 of Bazooka Kickboxing series. We're still talking about building combinations. This is part 4 of building these combinations. Last episode we talked about punch to kick combinations, which everyone tends to throw. It tends to be the most popular. But ones that I love to throw, and one of the most popular at Bazooka Kickboxing, is throwing our kick first, then follow our punches. It actually changes the rhythm, changes the pace of the fight. And as soon as you hit someone with a kick, they tend to post up, and that's the perfect time to throw your punches. So this episode is going to be about kicks to punches. One of the keys to throwing kick to punch combinations is our footwork, and I really want to show how I set my feet after the kick in order to get the best punching power. I'm going to show you the wrong way that people tend to do it at first, and what happens, you're always taught to start and end the kick from the same position in the back foot. So a lot of times you kick and you bring your foot back long. The problem with this now, I have no punching power. I need to step. So the mistake people make is they step again and they end up in this ridiculously long stance where they're open to counter punching. So what I'm going to tell you to do, the focus of the kick to punch is to get power into punches. The kick is to stop your opponent. So for example, if Troy's walking in, boom, I stop him, and now I want to finish with my punches. So that's the key. So what I'm going to do is I kick. I'm not going to bring my foot as back. I'm going to say about 3/4 of the way back. So I'm starting here, I kick, and I bring it a little bit closer to my opponent. This way, I now have a push-off point in order to step and get power, and I'm in a good power stance in my footwork and in my legs. If I'm too long, I got no power, no rate transfer in my foot, and watching the earlier episodes, you know that's a big mistake. So let's put it all together. Okay, Troy Sheridan here. I was going to be using the pads. Kick to punch, again, this is the ones we like to throw. Let's start with a kick, and we're going to follow with a hook cross, which is the basic to the kick punch combination. So one of the easiest ways for the kick punch combination is to throw the left hook after. That is one of our favorites because you can follow out another round kick again or a right straight. Uppercut cross. Hook cross. Uppercut cross. Okay, we're going to do straight punches now. Troy's a tall fighter. Straight punches are good to keep range. Kick, jab, cross. Okay, let's mix in our left kick, straight right. Kick, hook, cross. Cross, hook. Okay, there you have it, the basis, the kick punch combinations. Now we're going to use more of an intermediate drill where I'm going to kick Troy's leg and follow with little mitts. We're going to build in the same combinations this way, just a different way of drilling. So yeah, let's start.
Jab cross. Jab cross. Uppercut cross. Hook cross. Hook cross. Uppercut. Jab cross.
Okay, let's go left kicks.
Cross. Again.
Troy is a taller fighter who really likes to use his knees. Same thing with the kick. Troy's just going to actually lead with his knee, then follow his hands. So he's going to fire knee to hands, both sides. Same concept on the long bag, but I'm going to start changing levels again, mixing up heights with my punches and my kicks, all focused on kick to punch. We're just going to make this a little intermediate style, advanced drilling. Troy and I are just going to stand there with a simple style defense, and we're going to touch our targets, mixing our kicks to punches. So one key point I want to mention while we're here is make sure we're stepping. As you see, as I step with my kick, I punch and I exit out. Build in exits to the attack. Okay, so we're going to discuss some common mistakes. First common mistake is throwing each individual technique incorrectly. Watch the series, learn how to throw each properly, and then it'll build in combinations a lot quicker and a lot better. Second one is not having control of your feet. After you throw that first strike, which is our kick, if you bring your foot too long,
your stance is going to end up way too long. So make sure when you kick, you return it not as far back this way you can push off and get power in your punches. Big mistake people make. And again, make sure while you're throwing your techniques, everything in your hand position is kept nice and tight. You don't want to start wailing your hands and be open for counter punches. Stay defensive and stay powerful.
There you go, episode 18 of the Bazooka Kickboxing series. Episode 4 within the Bazooka Building Combination series, kick to punch combinations. Focus on that footwork. If you're kicking and your stance is too long, there's no power in the punch. Remember that 3/4 rule, I'm going to call it. Bring that back foot about 3/4, push off. That'll give you more power in your punches. The leg kick stops them, the punch finishes. Hope you enjoy the series, and we'll see you next week.